from Fasken Martineau. This morning our first witness is Brandon Doneff, Critical Care Flight Paramedic. And Brandon, if you could please come forward. And to confirm that you've received the information about witness coming before the committee?
That is correct.
Very well. And I understand we have an affirmation for you, which our clerk will do.
Mr. Doneff, do you solemnly affirm that the evidence you shall give to this committee touching the subject of the present inquiry shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I understand you have a brief opening statement you'd like to make? Please see.
Great. Thank you.
Grab a chair there and make yourself comfortable.
Thank you. Distinguished members of the Committee on Public Accounts, my name is Brandon R. Doneff, and I am deeply honored to have been invited to speak in front of you today. I greatly appreciate your time and consideration in the matters that have surfaced at Ornge. I am certain your task is not easy, nor is it one to be desired. With the documents that I have provided you, you will notice that I have been training and working in the healthcare field since graduating high school. I can honestly say that there has never been a day that I awoke and dreaded the thought of going to work on the helicopter. I truly believe that I have found my dream career. Now, having said that, there has been the odd call or two where I wished I was at home in the pool or anywhere else for that matter, like the time when a patient's colostomy bag exploded in the back of the enclosed helicopter. That was definitely one of those times. However, even after enduring all those sleepless nights, the missed dance recitals, hockey games, unruly patients, horrific scenes, freezing cold and blistering heat, I still am very happy and proud to be a critical care flight paramedic. So without further delay, please feel free to ask me any questions or any concerns that you deem necessary in order to find clarification into the matters surrounding my employer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll move to the official opposition first for their questioning. We'll have 20 minutes each caucus, and then we'll see how much time is left over. So, Mr. Klees.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for being here. You mentioned, you expressed your appreciation for being invited here today. Can you tell us who invited you to attend here?
Mr. William Short.
Do you know where that nomination came from?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not. I actually asked my managers and such, and they had no idea where it came from. So, nonetheless, it's an invitation, and I took it.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you being here. We've heard a great deal over the last number of months about the challenges that frontline paramedics and pilots are having in terms of carrying out their awesome responsibility. And to this point, what we have heard is that whether it's a paramedic or whether it's pilots, they have been extremely frustrating experiences for them. And there's a litany of records that have been presented to us.
Correct. Of
bases that were not able to respond to calls because of understaffing, because either there were not enough paramedics available or there were not pilots available. And I'd like to just hear from you. You have been employed with Ornge now since when?
Since day one.
Since day one.
I worked for Canadian Helicopters, if you refer to the resume, who
Yes.
was the initial employer, and even prior to that, National Helicopters, which is a private agency that also flew out of London, Ontario.
Have you ever been on call when a circumstance arose that you were not able to respond because of a downstaffing, because you didn't have another paramedic with you to fulfill the full complement required? Or were you ever at any base at any time when perhaps the paramedics were ready to go but the pilots weren't available? Can you tell us something about that experience, please?
Of course I can. On my professional experiences, I have never been unable to respond to a call. We do have occurrences where there has been single medic, and if we always have to have two pilots in order to fly the machine. I have never been on the job where there has only been one pilot. And in my experiences, they, in the past, if we were short one pilot, we would the managers would do their best job in order to attain another pilot, and that might be flying them in from Ottawa or even from the north. Now that's out of my jurisdiction. I have no understanding of how that goes down, but as a paramedic, I have been on calls as a single paramedic due to short-term sick leave, where a medic has actually booked off sick during a call or the night before. And sometimes you are correct in saying that there is no one else to work. Either be their time off, and it is their time off. We are not forced to work extra and above duty hours. If we do, we are paid appropriately. But to my best knowledge, that they have always done the best of their job to accommodate that.
You're very familiar with the Ambulance Act and the regulations that set out the standards for staffing.
Correct.
Can you tell us what the regulations or legislation say about the number of paramedics that must be staffing a particular ambulance, be that ground or be that air ambulance?
Without verbatim, it is 2.
It is 2.
I believe so, yes.
And so you found yourself in circumstances where you knew that essentially you were breaking the law by attending as a single paramedic. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And why would you place yourself into that circumstance?
Because both professionally and personally, I believe that with my amount of training and with doctor's orders, that I can work up to, I've been told this, to a primary care level. Even though I am certified critical care flight paramedic, if I am single-staffed, I work up to a primary care paramedic.
But you know that the legislation requires 2 paramedics to be on that call. And you have attended as a single paramedic, notwithstanding what the legislation states.
I have never been a type of person to come out and say, I am unwilling to help another person because it is, for lack of better words, against the law. If I can help, I will help. I have never been told by my managers not to go on the call. They have never come out and said, you are a single medic today. You will not be allowed on that helicopter until a second medic is there with you. And it's within my personality to do the best that I can with the tools that I have.
And so your managers knew that they were asking you or allowing you to do something that was clearly against the legislation, very clearly prescribed.
That is correct.
How did you feel about that?
Well, as stated earlier, there's never been a time that I dreaded going into work. If I am staffed, single staff, that is has nothing to do with my doing. That is above my pay cut, and I really can't do much about that. I show up for work for my 12-hour shift, and if it goes on beyond 12 hours, I do my job.
You've heard your colleagues come forward, fellow paramedics who expressed serious concern about the environment within which they were being asked to conduct their professional service. And to the point where we have incident reports that you're obviously aware of as well, where on numerous occasions a call was not able to be completed because of that issue, because of a single paramedic, or because of the medical interior of the helicopter. We'll deal with that on a separate line of questioning. And I understand your commitment to wanting to do the right thing and obviously save lives. That's why you're doing what you're doing. I'd like your opinion in terms of the liability that the management at Ornge placed you and your fellow paramedics into by allowing or encouraging paramedics to go on a single paramedic call?
Well, unfortunately, the onus does come down to a paramedic. As you're well aware of, there are letters that have been brought forth to management, and when we do not get the appropriate response, we've gone up. When we do not receive the appropriate response, we've gone out. Hence, we're here, and hence your questioning. At the London base, we've had, I believe, over 9 or 10 managers alone for paramedics. The unfortunate part with that is, as you're well aware of, it's very difficult to understand the roles and responsibility of a manager if you've only been there for a month, and then you have to learn from the beginning again and again and again. And sometimes I truly don't believe that they understand what is going on at the real core. So with regards to the onus being on the paramedic and the roles and responsibility as a paramedic, they were well aware, I believe.
You made an interesting comment about the management and the constant turnover of management. You know, an organization that's entrusted with delivering an essential emergency service, one would think that foremost would be a focus on ensuring that the people who are managers are well qualified for that job. You've just told us that that was not the case.
I did not say they were not qualified. I wasn't on the HR committee in the hiring. However, I believe it takes a certain amount of time for them to understand the true essence behind what our actual duties are. And with that, you're very well aware of some of the frustrations from the frontline staff.
On August the 18th of last year, you were part of a meeting that took place that was headed by Tom Lapine, Rhoda Beecher, and Hallie McClellan. Do you recall that meeting?
In London?
In London.
I do.
What was the nature of that meeting? What was the agenda at that meeting?
Basically, some of the agendas were with regards to money at Ornge, with regards to staffing at Ornge, and actually there was even a comment made because of the lack of money at Ornge, and that there is a possibility that if, quote unquote, if the paramedics continued to utilize their sick time and utilize their vacation time, that there may be the possibility of a base closing. And I remember quite clearly the individual stating, which base shall we close first? And I don't want to close bases, but which one shall I close first?
So this was in August of last year.
That is correct.
And you as staff were being told that Ornge was actually contemplating closing bases.
Correct.
And they said specifically the reason for that is that the Ministry of Health had advised them that there would be no more money for them. Is that correct?
I don't remember them stating, quote unquote, Ministry of Health, but I do remember them stating that there is no more money. And
at
obviously
that meeting,
the minister comes from, right? So you read between
at that meeting, do you recall any discussions about the for-profit activities that Ornge was engaging in terms of generating additional private funds?
There was a lot of talk about going outside of Ontario. And that's what got a lot of us frontline staff very nervous, and also, on the flip side, from my personal and professional opinion, very excited, because that meant more staff, that meant a broader range of our care, that we could go outside of Ontario and do more things with our job and career. Now, having said that, if I was told that Ontario is giving money to keep in Ontario, and yet Ornge is going outside of Ontario to get money, we all raised an eyebrow with that. And when questioned that, they basically said what they were trying to do was create a business Ornge in a box. And when we spoke about that, we asked, what does that mean? And they said they wanted Ornge to become a household name, like Tide, like Nike, whatever, around the world. So the intent was there, was good. We had no idea where the money was going or where it was coming from. There was a foundation that you were all well aware of. I know they were going out on their own accord and attempting to get money from persons, but we weren't privy to all that information.
So on the one hand, you were being told, these are frontline paramedics, look, we don't have any more money. The ministry has told us there is no more money, and we may have to close some bases. It's just a matter of determining which one. Yet at the same meeting, they're telling you that they've got this elaborate plan to go outside of Ontario when they can't even look after the core business of ensuring that paramedics and pilots and the resources within Ontario are in place to do the job that you're mandated to do. Is that right?
That is correct.
Consternation?
I believe I stated that the foundation seems to be cracked.
Well, let me ask you this. I have copies of the minutes of that meeting in front of me here. Mr. Chair, I have copies for members of the committee as well. If we could have that distributed, and a copy as well. Sir, we'll give you a copy so that you can refer to it. This is for Mr. Manoff. On page 8 of 9 of these minutes, it's a very interesting reference here, and I'll quote. This is coming from Mr. Lapine, who I understand led page 8 of 9. Mr. Lapine, who was leading the discussion.
Yes.
So I'll quote. I, along with the chairman of the board, provided details of Ornge Global to the Deputy Ministers of Finance, Health and Infrastructure, all of whom supported the initiatives. Performance agreement negotiations included revenue generation outside of Ontario for benefit of Ontarians. End of quote. So we have now Mr. Lapine reassuring frontline staff of Ornge that while they may be closing a base or two here in Ontario, they've fully briefed the Ministry of Health and Finance and Infrastructure of their plans to expand beyond Ontario, and they're fully supportive. Do you recall that discussion?
I do recall that, and as a frontline staff, we didn't know how to respond to that.
Did you feel betrayed?
We felt something was afoot, and yes, most definitely betrayed.
And yet during the same time, you must have been aware, because you're perceived as a leader. You have, I think, some of the longest term experience of any of the paramedics on the front lines. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
So you would have been fully aware of all of these incident reports that we now are privy to because of a confidential document that is a briefing to the Minister of Health on a regular basis, where patients died. And patients died perhaps not directly because of a paramedic not being able to take them into a helicopter. But what we don't know is if in fact that patient could have been taken to the hospital by air and had treatment sooner, whether that patient may well have lived. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
You have 3 minutes left.
I want to thank you for helping us with this, because at the end of the day, our objective, I think, is very similar to yours. We want to ensure that our air ambulance service is competent, is properly resourced, and that every dollar of tax-funded health care dollars goes to the front line so that you can do your job. And here we had an organization that was essentially saying, we're actually willing to cut back on the service that we're providing here because we have this vision of going internationally with our little orange in a box, as you put it. and we're willing to compromise patient care in Ontario. We want to get beyond that, and we want to restore and ensure that we do it the right way. We want to ensure that we can restore confidence in our air ambulance service, and we're going to do it through people like yourself who are dedicated to the front line, but we need straightforward, honest answers from you so that we can go about making the recommendations that need to be made to get it right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, through you, Mr. Cleese.
Yes.
I've got the minutes. Thank you very much. And they start at page, well, there's an introductory page and then starts page 3 of 9. Do we have the other 2 pages just to make it complete?
If Mr. Klees has it, you should have it. Otherwise, we'll move on to the NDP for their questioning. And Ms. Gillens?
Thank you. I'd like to thank you for coming to Queen's Park. I can be a little bit intimidating at first, but you're doing very well this morning.
Thank you.
You have talked about some of the problems that you have shared with Mr. Klees about your work. You know, like you want to do good for people, and when it is within your purview to make decisions, you make the right decision. The decisions to go and help people in need, which is the career you choose to do, and you seem quite happy with it. During the time when you did have to make decisions that went against the law, did you ever try to tell someone that, hey guys, I'm alone here, there need to be 2 of us, and who did you have those conversations with?
So, yes, on multiple occasions, myself personally and other frontline staff did speak their concerns. They did voice their concerns, and once again, first and foremost, we have to speak to our managers. And some of the responses were from our management was there just are no staff. And once again, with regards to last year in August with these meetings, they were basically saying we have no more money to fill the seat with other paramedics. We found that extremely disappointing, and we found that it was a sacrifice for our patients and for ourselves, because you cannot lift a patient. I mean, I'm a healthy guy. I could probably lift all of you, but by myself, you know, it's very dangerous at times, and we get into some very unorthodox situations. When we found out what the management was saying to us, and even with Mr. Tom Lapine when they spoke, we, as you're well aware, we have a union. It was brought forth to them as well, and we said there are some times when it is unsafe for us to practice like that. There has been times where we spoke to the physicians, and the physicians did what they could as well. And it felt like you were just meeting a brick wall at times. And basically the response was, there is no more money. We cannot fill that seat. Now, I found it very unusual and very unorthodox once our CEO was removed, that things changed. They changed dramatically. All of a sudden we had another paramedic in that seat. All of a sudden there was upstaffing with regards to vacation time and sick time and such. And some of the troubles just seemed to disappear. There was some rules and regulations that were brought down, and I know that we were told to save money with delaying launch times. From day one, even from my college days, we were told you have X amount of time to get out of your seat, stop whatever you're doing, get out that door, get in the ambulance. Doesn't matter if it's a fixed wing, a helicopter, a land ambulance, you have 8 to 10 minutes. Now in a helicopter, that's pretty quick. And the pilots and the paramedics and the engineers worked in unison to do that. We were extremely frustrated and very disappointed once we found out that we were being told, no, now what you're going to be doing is you're going to have a pre-alert, and once there is a primary care or advanced care, it doesn't matter who is on scene, these are only for on scenes, mind you, and that means that it's an accident, you will wait to hear if you are required. Now, Mr. Klees, you spoke about patients dying. We wrote care reports about some very, very key components with regards to that, and it was months and months and months before we heard anything back. We're very connected on land and in the air. We have friends who work in the industry, and they came back and told us, unfortunately that individual died. They didn't make it to the hospital. We could have really used you. What happened? And that was very disappointing. Very disappointing to hear that stuff.
You refer back to the meeting that you had in August. How long before this did it start? How long before this did you see that providing top quality care was not the top mandate anymore?
I do believe it was the beginning of that summer, because that's essentially when a lot of the trauma calls start to come in. People are a lot more busier in the summer and such, so I would, forgive me for saying, but I'm guessing it was May, June, and there was a policy that was brought out, and it was a very confusing policy because it was never explained to us 100%. It was just sort of brought out, and I do not have that policy in front of me. I'm almost certain you can talk to a manager somewhere and they'll be able to reproduce it.
So we're talking May, June of 2010.
Before that meeting, correct.
So from May, June of 2010, you can see that decisions are being made, a policy has been put in place that does not lead to top quality care.
Correct.
Quite to the opposite.
Top quality care, you still had the paramedics and pilots. However, we were not allowed to do our job, in my opinion, like we were doing it prior to that. So you still had the same care.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Once you got there.
That's correct.
All right, all right. And if there were two of you to...
That is correct.
To do what you needed to do. But yet, so that's May 2010. We fast forward to January of 2012. The resources did not change, but out of a sudden there are enough resources to do a good job. Is it a big stretch to think that if the ministry had acted in August of 2010, then things could have gotten better a whole lot sooner?
Yes. We actually had a very nice visit with Deb Matthews, and one of the questions was, what took so long? How come things take so long, right? I have no idea what goes on in these closed-door meetings and such. And once again, I have no desire to sit here. But that's exactly what we asked. There was time and time again of questions and eyebrows being raised with regards to all of these matters, and we just came right out and we said, us as frontline staff, we have noticed a significant change, and we feared for our patients in Ontario because of these changes, and we were furious. We were very disappointed. We felt betrayed.
And you said you raised this with your union, you raised it with some of the physicians that work with you, you raised it with management. Is there any evidence that that all of this was hidden away from the ministry?
That's an excellent question, but I was never invited to a meeting where it was going to be presented to the minister or anyone with that significant importance with regards to those matters, so I can't honestly say that yes, it was hidden, or no, it was not. So we did feel as though our voice was not being heard to the proper persons.
So the voice coming from the ministry was a voice of, this is the money you have to make do, but you didn't feel that there was ever a voice back to the ministry saying, listen, things are not good here. we need to. The only part you heard was the part telling you there's no more money.
Correct. Perhaps they left a voicemail, I don't know. Just didn't get the message, unfortunately.
All right. And could you name some of the manager with who you raise those issues?
Okay. There was Helly McClellan. Prior to her, we didn't have a manager for a year in London, at the London base.
Oh.
And what we had was our sister bases, for lack of better terms, such as Ottawa and Toronto, managing their base as well as our base.
Okay.
We did have a lot of issues. Now, we're all grown adults and medical professionals, so we pretty much ran the base on our own, other than being paid, or else we'd all be rich by now, but not going to happen. But we had many issues with regards to stocking of medical supplies and just simple things that make your job easier. And we were without a manager for a year. There was a Mr. Jeff Cars as well, who was the Ottawa manager, who assisted us. So a lot of these issues were raised to them personally. So Helly McClellan was post that 1 year. She was hired post the 1 year. So.
Okay. From May of 2010, who was your manager at the time?
That was Helly McClellan, I believe.
It would have been.
Yeah. You'll have to forgive me. We've had a couple.
That's okay. We're all the same.
Yes.
There's some things you remember very well, others not so good.
Well,
garbage on Tuesday morning is very important in my family.
My brain is only so big, so I have to keep the important stuff in.
All right. The changes that you saw once there was a change of CEO, a change of board, were they drastic? Were they more like going back to what you had before?
Correct. They were not drastic. They were going back to the way we were being run prior to Ornge taking over, so to speak. When we were run by Canadian Helicopters. Now, don't get me wrong, both companies are doing a fantastic job in various departments. However, I believe when we were being run by Canadian Helicopters, it was more medical and in Ontario, 100% Ontario. We had our key components, and Dr. Mazza himself, I honestly believe that if it were not for his passion to get me to become a critical care flight paramedic, I don't think I would be the same medic I am today. So for that, I thank him and his organization. However, we noticed a shift, as Mr. Klees stated that right here, quote unquote, they decided to go out of Ontario, and that's when we really noticed a huge shift. There was talks of having planes in Florida. There was talks of having planes, in other various locations and stuff. And I believe that their plan was good, but from where the money was coming from, none of us really had any idea. And we didn't really want to know, honestly. We just knew things were not good on the front line, and as stated before, the foundation was cracking.
So here we have not a change in the budget, and not the only change that happened with the people at the top and the focus being brought back to Ontario. And would you say that things are good again?
Yes, they're better. Most definitely better. As stated, it's more of a rare occasion that we have a single medic. Now, granted, I see some empty seats here. It's not any different than mine. So if there's only two of us and you're not scheduled, I'm not going to have my laptop or my cell phone, or I'm not going to have it on my hip, because let's face it, I have a life outside of my job. And some people don't want to take the extra shifts. So if someone books off sick, say at 0100 in the morning for an 0700 in the morning shift, maybe there is nobody. But now things have changed where they'll be calling in Toronto, and they'll be driving a medic from Toronto to come down, as opposed to just going into London. And also with regards to staffing issues, so there has been a couple of more paramedics being hired at the London base as well, which we've asked for on multiple occasions. But once again, it's easy for us to beg and plead for something, but we really have no idea, because I'm not the one writing the check and doing everything else.
Would you say that the way things are now are as good as they were before they started to go back?
They're getting better. There was a mention of medical interior. They are getting better. So
As in, they work or they don't work?
the medical interior is new, and as with anything that is new, there are hiccups. I was not on part of that committee. I don't know if I really wished I was on that part of the committee. But having worked in multiple configurations of helicopters since 1996, 97, I believe, this one is almost like an ICU room for us to load patients in a hurry. And it's taking us longer to do our job in the back because of the electronics involved. And it's different. Is it safer? I would say once everything is strapped down and secured, it's more safe because of the testing that the equipment have to go through. I don't like saying this, but in the event of a hard landing or a crash, they state that things will stay placed without becoming objects of projectiles and causing undue damage to us and the patient. They will stay in place. Whereas in the old helicopter, I don't believe that there was ever the same testing. It was never brought to us that way. But they were really, really, really pushing this is safer. They were stating that in the event of a hard landing, it can withstand, I think, a 12 or a 15 G landing. So I don't think I can withstand a 12, 15 G.
I wouldn't want to try it anyway.
No, most definitely not. But, I mean, in that essence, yes, it is better. But there are still some hiccups we're working with regards to the medical interior.
Okay. Would you know if every time you go, you have to log your flight?
Yes.
Does Ornge keep an independent log, or is it only the log that they give to NAVCAN?
In a nutshell, I as a paramedic, if I transport a patient, I have to fill out an air ambulance call report. And that computer is the information from that goes to a server, I believe to Ornge, because we have our own IT department. And as well, our pilots also have to log numbers and flight times and such. And I even believe now with the new helicopters that they have to download data via some server, and it takes about a half an hour or such. And I think that's what they're doing as engineers. I don't know if Ornge keeps its separate log. That's above my pay scale, unfortunately. But I do know that we are like triplicating almost every call. So
You have 3 minutes.
Just quickly then, have you ever seen any oversight from the government, as in a government person coming over to see how you're doing?
yes.
And they were from EMS, or?
No, it was Deb Matthews who came, when was that? June or July? She popped in to say hello. And I was very impressed. I was very, very honored and humbled to have an MPP come into my work. And I was happy. I was very, very happy to see someone come in there and say, how are you guys? I understand you guys are getting a lot of mud thrown at you. Are you okay? And we were
That was
happy.
this year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, I met on an ongoing basis, except for, I'm happy Minister Matthew went and saw you, but before this, have you ever had any type of oversight coming from the government?
Other than base audits and such, no. But base audits are a norm for us. It should be coming. So, but other than a quick pop-in, no. But I mean, we're just one base.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many ambulance bases. I mean, if all of a sudden you were to hire me and say, that's your job, oh boy, there's only so many days in the year, correct? So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we'll move on to the government. Ms. Sandals?
Yes, thank you very much. And before I move on, just a couple of clarifications I wanted to make. The meeting that we've got the notes for that Mr. Klees handed out refers to 18th of August 2011.
Okay.
So you talked about things sort of going negative a few months before that, so that would have been May or June 2011. Is
I
that
believe
correct?
so, yes.
Not 2010.
Yes.
It would have been
Yes.
spring
Yes,
2011.
Yes, thank you for that clarification. It is a little bit of a blur because I must admit, when things became a little bit negative, if you go into work with that negativity, we all know what happens. So we did. Most of us did our best. Just your clear.
Yeah, no, I just wanted
Yeah.
to, I was just trying to sort it out in my own mind because I was getting this date disconnect. And then I guess just to note, I don't know who took these notes, but on page 8, when whoever it is taking notes about Orange Global and moving out of Ontario, it talks about funds can only flow into Ontario, cannot flow out, no public funds are being used on Global. So this was the message that you received. You might have been skeptical, but it was what you were told by management, is that correct?
On multiple occasions we were told that.
Okay. So I just wanted to get that bit of clarification and say thank you so much, because it's wonderful to see somebody who's on the front lines here. We've had so many witnesses and so many hours of testimony, and we've been grilling politicians and chairs and CEOs and executives and lobbyists and lawyers. And it's really nice that we actually have somebody who's doing the frontline work, and maybe that's where we should actually have started and found out what it was like for you on the front line. So it's great to see you here, and thank you so much for coming this morning, because we really do appreciate somebody with your experience, and just reading your CV, it's very impressive. Somewhere in your spare time, you've actually written a handbook for other paramedics. So.
I have, yeah. As I was explaining to Mr. Klees earlier, he said the same thing, and I said, basically in a nutshell, what it was is a compilation of all my notes, because every year we have to recertify with our doctors, and it's basically their license. So if we don't meet their standards, we do not work at that level. So these were study notes, sort of like cheat notes, so to speak.
Great, great. I wonder just if you could talk a little bit what an average shift is like.
Certainly.
So when you come in and you're doing a 12-hour shift, what's a typical 12-hour shift like for you? Can you take us through the day?
Certainly.
Or the night, as the case may be?
Yes. So we work in London 0700 to 1900, or vice versa, 1900 to 0700. At the beginning of the shift, we will go out and check our machine. We'll get a briefing from the crew prior to and state how is the back of the helicopter, what sort of medical equipment did you use, not use, is there any problems, and we also have like a journey log, so to speak, that if there was difficulty with any equipment, we can pass that on to the manager.
So this is the handoff from shift to shift?
Correct, yeah. We also have to count narcotics, because we have those in triple lock boxes and such. And then once that is completed, we basically wait for a phone call, which can be anything and everything. So, for example, it takes us about 40 minutes to get to Owen Sound, 45 minutes to Windsor, Pelee Island, 50 minutes, give or take. And then another base is Toronto, and as you're well aware, they have 2 helicopters, so we'll sort of crisscross. With regards to patient care, there's essentially 3 types of calls that we do. There's the trauma on scene, where we'll land on, where you see us on CTV and such. And then also the modified on-scene, where if we were called to a on-scene by land ambulance or an OPP or even fire department, if we never say stay there and wait for us, we always say get them to a doctor. The closest hospital is what's best for the patient. So then if they still require us, we'll land at a helipad or an airport, get a land ambulance in, we'll go in and we'll work in conjunction with the paramedics or the medical physician that is there. And what we'll do is we'll, in a timely manner, get out of there and get them to a level 1 trauma center if need be. And last but not least is the ICU, CCU transport, where a person's had a recent stroke or cardiac event or post-surgery and they need to go to a higher tertiary level of care. So.
Okay. Could you sort of walk us through what happens on a trauma on-scene call, sort of how the details of that work from the time you get to the call till you
Certainly.
hopefully get the patient to hospital.
Certainly. So it's my understanding that virtually anyone can call 911 and request the helicopter. So usually what happens is a call will come into 911 for a local CAC. So let's say it's Kitchener. So it's about 15-20 minutes for us to fly there. And once they deem it necessary for us, there's a bunch of trauma triage codes. If the patient's life is in peril, then of course call the helicopter because of level of care and also distance. We can get there much faster. So in that event, once we receive a call via our dispatch, so it goes from the paramedics on scene, for example, goes to their dispatch would phone our dispatch, the appropriate measures are done, and then they would phone the appropriate base. Now, due to weather and other jurisdictions that are out of my scope, pilots would then have to accept the call, and then upon accepting the call, we have 8 to 10 minutes for wheels up, and that's all documented. When we get the call details in flight, then we land at the scene, and that might be on a highway or a farm, wherever. As soon as the area is safe and secured that is deemed by our captain, we land. Most of the time we'll keep the helicopter rotors going, and we'll go out and, as a team, work with the paramedics, police, fire, and bring the patient back to the hospital, to appropriate hospitals.
And at what point during this would you be in contact with the doctor? Because you mentioned earlier being in contact with the base doctor.
Yes. If we knew that the patient was trapped for X amount of minutes or such, and their vital signs were in dire need of, say, fluids or intravenous or blood products, we could patch ahead and say, hello, doctor, or for BHP, could you please get the OPP to bring out some blood products, because we have a lengthy extrication. Or we also have a standing order medical directives book, which I have with me, and it's about that thick. It's a little bit heavy, but nonetheless, we have to know that. That is our job, to know that. And once we get on scene, we do our job. We do the initial physical assessment, and we can utilize standing orders and medical directives that are taught to us by the physicians, apply the appropriate care for life-saving measures, and then en route or while on scene, if we deem that we need more orders that are outside of that scope, then we will patch into the physician. Now, all this takes time. So as a critical care flight medic, we have to weigh the good with the bad with that. And most of the time when we're working, we can have a land crew stabilize the patient by doing something that we request that's within their scope of practice. And while we're walking to the helicopter, we can be on the satellite phone or the cell phone.
Okay, and because you are a critical care paramedic, your scope of practice is much broader, and there's a whole range of things that you can do that a primary care paramedic wouldn't be able to do independently.
Yes, it is much broader, yes.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to turn over to my colleague.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Doneff, for appearing before this committee. I have no doubt that you have experienced some extremely gratifying moments and some, of course, genuine tragedies in your time at Ornge. Perhaps you could start with the happy story. What has been your most gratifying moment as a critical care flight paramedics at Ornge?
Assisted delivery, and actually my partner at the time, Matthew, and myself had the young baby take our names. The mother sent us a very, very nice thank you letter and said, I'd like you to meet Brandon Matthew, and I cannot recall the last name, but we had our names taken for their baby, which was very, very humbling. There has been many, many, many good times, many excellent times where we've been very gratified and proud to do the job that we do. And as stated earlier, unfortunately, there has been times where people just don't make it, no matter what we do. Just recently, within the last 2 weeks, I believe, I don't know if you heard about some of the drownings around here. Port Burrell, I believe it was. We flew in there, and there was an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old brother-sister who had drowned, and unfortunately, there wasn't anything that we could do medically to bring their lives back. So,
would you consider that as the most tragic experience you had ever at Orange, or there are others? You can tell us at least one of the most tragic ones.
There are multiple occasions. There's been, I don't want to say it, but as an adult, if you're injured, usually it's because of your own demise, to a certain extent, but it's with the children that's really tears at you. We've had burn patients where the child, for some reason, got a hold of flammable fluids somehow. Firearms, we've had multiple occurrences where there's just very, very unusual, unorthodox, and untimely deaths. So.
Okay, thank you. There was a recent article about you in the London Free Post. I'm sure you have seen that article. London Free Press, actually. The article refers to you as, I quote, elite in the world of emergency responders. And it goes on to say that there are less than 100 paramedics in Canada with your level of experience and qualifications. And something which that really struck me in that article was that a quote from you, which you said, it's all about speed for us. Can you elaborate on what you mean, speed, as a key factor, I guess, in your work of line?
Yes. By speed, I also mean efficiency with regards to that. I don't know if I actually spoke of that in there, but efficiency. So that means by us having the best and most efficient training and being able to apply that at any time and anywhere. And also that means with speed with regards to utilizing the helicopter. So from that first 911 call, be it whoever calls the dispatch, it has to be speed, because it's the time. That is the true essence that will save a life. And sometimes we've gone on scenes and they are literally getting pulled out of the wreckage. We don't waste time sitting there looking for cameras and trying to get into movies and such. We're gone within minutes. If they're ready to go, we stabilize, do the best of our capability at that time, and we go, because we're not surgeons. We're not the doctors who can open them up and clamp that artery. We don't do that. We do what we do within our scope of practice, and that's what I mean by the speed.
Thank you. The article also makes reference to the fact that you often have to land in terrible terrain and also terrible weather. It mentions that one time when you had to rappel down a ravine. Can you tell us about that experience?
Sure. Well, there was one time when we landed in a cattle field, and I got my boots quite dirty. That was terrible. But there has been times, because people, not so much around here. I mean, we could land virtually anywhere. Within 5 minutes, we can get a pizza in the Tim Hortons, correct? But up north, people hike, people bike, and they're on MVC. They get into MVCs and such. And sometimes you can't get there by land ambulance or such. And we've been put into the back of a truck, and we get there with our backpacks. I've hiked into a logging community. And this could be in the middle of the night. We could land in an airport and then take into a remote area. I've even known that some of my colleagues up north, because of weather, the helicopter was able to land, but because of the weather and the distance from the patient to get the patient back to the helicopter, it was too great. So they had to leave because of thunderstorms and such, or freezing rain. Sometimes it's just unsafe for the helicopter to fly. And they had to spend the night with the patient in the bush. So now we do training, we do underwater survival training, which we simulate in a pool. We're basically in chairs like this, buckled in, and they flip us upside down in the pool. We're trained how to get out of that safely by undoing our seatbelt and such, and we're also trained how to survive in the wilderness for the greater point. Like I said earlier, with a phone call you get a Timmy's, right? So, but we have that training as well.
I also took note of the fact that you were involved in the airlifting of the patients during the Walkerton water tragedy. Perhaps you can explain that experience to the committee as well.
Yes, that I think that was a pivoting point for us because initially our base was 12-hour day shifts and then 12-hour on-call night shifts. And then they deemed it necessary for us to go 24-hour, 7 days a week, all year long. So with regards to that, I remember being stationed up there and waiting for patients because there was basically a lineup. Which one do you want to take first? So that we had to triage with the doctors and such, and a lot of them were in full-on renal failure. And I know a lot of them didn't make it because of that tragedy.
I have to tell you that, Mr. Doneff, that over the past number of months, we have heard some troubling stories in this committee about Ornge, in particular with respect to some of the things that were going on at the upper level of the organization, as you know. I assume you have followed the stories in the media and of the legislature reasonably closely. As a critical care flight paramedics, who was clearly dedicated to his work before this all happened, and clearly continues to be dedicated to this mission of helping critically injured people in Ontario, what are your thoughts on what has transpired at Ornge over the past number of months?
I think it's even before the past number of months. I think this was something, it was a brainchild. It was a deep-rooted desire to move above and beyond outside of Ontario. I remember quite clearly our upper management stating, quote, unquote, there is no money in Ontario. Now, I found that very troubling when you're a frontline staff and it's like, well, why do we need more money? We're being funded. Like our previous employer actually, I think, did quite all right. And I don't know what's really changed. But I do know that all of a sudden we had a couple of land ambulances show up. And I understand because of change in money and government and such, and with the interest rates and so forth, things changed. So I believe that stopped. But yet they were still in service, so that started to bleed off, and then all of a sudden we noticed that there was a great deal of hiring going on for persons who weren't doing the same work or aiding and guiding us as frontline staff. And when we were introduced to them, we were like, hello, how are you? Who are you? And how do you help us help the community? And they were like, oh, well, I'm so-and-so, and we don't really do that. I'm with this. And we're like, okay. And then as stated earlier with regards to this and the closing of bases, and I'm like, well, I'm pretty certain if we decided to get rid of our sort of upside-down pyramid with all the management up top and stuff, that we'd probably be doing much better than we were at that time. So I believe that the monies were allocated to different agencies, perhaps.
Thank you. And if you're finished with the question, we're done with this round of questioning. We'll move on, and we'll have 10 minutes for each party in the third round. Mr. Klees?
Thank you. Mr. Doneff, you referred to scope of practice.
Yes, sir.
And I want to just get back to my questioning of you earlier about the single medic issue, which is a very serious issue and has serious patient care implications. I'd like to ask you this question. As a single medic, can you respond to all calls or only certain calls due to medical requirements?
So with regards to that, what normally happens is if an on-scene comes as a single medic, we are told we are to go. We have never been told to stand down because you're a single medic. In the event that I require assistance, be it verbally or physically, I can phone my patch physician, who I am under their license, and they have given me orders under their license to administer medications and stuff.
And so who has directed you to go as a single medic, notwithstanding what the medical requirements are?
Management.
And you're aware that that is contrary to provincial legislation. And so your current management is actually breaking provincial legislation standards. You're aware of that?
When you put it that way, that is correct.
That is correct. Thank you. You mentioned, the question was asked about on-scene investigations. You mentioned that the minister was very gracious in making a public relations visit to the London base. Did you get a sense that she has any knowledge about what to look for to see if things were what they should be in that base, or was it just basically a hello, nice to see you, thank you for what you do? Was there an official function that she was carrying out?
I don't believe so. I honestly believe that she came to us as a human being. She came to us because she knew what we were going through, and she heard the rumors. And also, she asked us, do you think I did the right thing about having your CEO removed? And things changed, and we all agreed, yes.
I'd like to ask you this. My understanding is that there have been no quality care drop-in inspections from the Ministry of Health. There have been no Ministry of Health audits of the London base since Mr. McCurley was installed. Is that correct?
Unfortunately, I cannot answer that because I have no knowledge of, I'm not management, so I wouldn't be privy to that information. I would only be in that knowledge if it was hearsay. Like, oh, yesterday we had a visit from so-and-so from the Ministry of Health and such.
One would have thought, particularly given your experience and your senior position, that if there was a visit like that, an audit from the Ministry of Health, that you would be made aware of that. Would you agree with that? I mean, these are not secrets.
No, and we're a very small community.
Right.
There is only...
But you've heard of no visits from the Ministry of Health.
I have not.
Would you think that, given the history, that might be one of the priorities to ensure that bases are properly inspected, to ensure that all of the things that have gone wrong in the past, that there might be an inspection rather than just a public relations visit?
Well, I found it rather odd because I just spent a night at the Delta Chelsea, and every bathroom there's a little card, and it has a signature and a time and a date, inspected by, and that's a bathroom at a local hotel. Interesting.
You're familiar with Canadian Helicopters. You actually were employed by them previously, is that right?
That is correct.
And you indicated in your testimony previously that things were not that bad when it was under Canadian Helicopters and Voyageur for the fixed wing, right?
Yes.
Are you aware that when both of these companies were providing service to our air ambulance services, that the dispatch reliability of those two companies was registered, tracked very carefully, and it stood at 98% response? You aware of that?
I didn't know it was that high, and I was also aware of that there was penalties if we did not have a second pilot, a second medic.
So under that previous system, if Canadian Helicopters or Voyageur allowed to have happen what is happening consistently under Ornge, there was a financial penalty that they had to pay to the Ministry of Health. Correct?
That is correct.
Is there a financial penalty now that you know of?
Not that I am aware of.
Of course not. Because it's inside baseball. There's no accountability to anyone.
I believe they say that's the fox guarding the hen house.
Yeah, that's actually perhaps that's part of that orange box that they were referring to. I have one other question for you. I wish we had more time. But because it affects you and your frontline colleagues, the AW139s, as I understand it, there's a very negative impact of a generator failure. Are you aware of that?
I have never been on a flight and had a generator fail.
Thank God.
Correct.
Let me give you the summary here of what I understand the technical issue is. The AW139, as I understand it, is equipped with two generators, one on each engine. The redundancy built into twin-engine helicopters or other helicopters allows for the essential electrical systems to continue even in spite of the failure of one of those generators. There's a redundancy built in from the other generator. I'm told that the Ornge 139 medical systems are designed to shut down on the loss of a single generator. The implication of that is this. You're in flight.
Yes.
All of the systems built into the helicopter for the patient care cease to function. all of them. That includes medical oxygen, suction, compressed air, satellite communications. Where does that leave you as a paramedic with your patient?
That leaves me with my experiences and my medical training alone.
And this information was given to Mr. McCurley within weeks of him coming on site. Has anything been done to address that issue?
To the best of my understanding, no. And even with the medical interior, when it first was launched to us, there were a lot of questions and more so concerns about that.
To that end, I have minutes here of a meeting that took place February 23rd, 2011, at the London, with the London Flight paramedics. I'm sure you were there.
Do we have copies for other members?
Yes, we do, as a matter of fact. To the clerk. There are 20 flight paramedic occupational health and safety issues listed here that relate to the AW139. There are 8 specific public and patient safety issues listed in these minutes, and 24 miscellaneous issues. I appreciate your courage in continuing to carry on what you do, but I'm going to ask you this question. What is your perception in terms of the relationship between you and the job that you do and the Ministry of Health of the province of Ontario?
That's got some teeth, that question. I don't really know how to answer that. I believe that when Ornge was given the job and the duty to complete their task, and that's to provide an air ambulance service to all of Ontario, that it was with faith. And I believe the faith was sugar-coated, so to speak. And I don't know at what point in time where things went wrong. I don't know who's to blame. I can't point a finger.
Is it fair to say,
You're on your last minute.
is it fair to say that as a frontline paramedic providing important emergency services in the province of Ontario, that you believe, and that all of your colleagues believe, that they are working for the province of Ontario?
Yes.
Is that fair?
Yeah, 100%.
And do you think that it would be expected from your colleagues and everyone else in this province that the Ministry of Health would exercise proper accountability and oversight of that air ambulance system to ensure that they're properly resourced, to ensure that they're doing their job appropriately, that all of the conditions are being met? Is that a fair expectation that you would have and that your colleagues would have and that every person in this province would have?
Yes.
Do you believe that the Ministry of Health has exercised that accountability?
I am uncertain.
How can you be uncertain knowing what you've seen and telling us today all of the things that have gone wrong, all of the faults and all of the failures? How can, please, to this point, you have been very forthright. I'd like to hear from your gut in terms of what you believe the Ministry of Health has done. Have they exercised their responsibility of oversight of Ornge?
I think to err is to be human. And I want to believe that when people are doing a job, they do the best of their capabilities at that point in time.
And thank you, and we'll move to the NDP.
Can we find out where these documents are? This is the second document Mr. Klees has tabled, and there's no indication whose meeting notes there are. There's no indication whose health and safety document this purports to be. We just have no idea where these are coming from.
Well, Mr. Chair,
Quickly, please,
the names are at the very top of the document.
No, the CCs are there. I know who it got copied to. I don't know who it's to or who it's from. I don't know who wrote the documents.
Let's look into all of the documents.
Let's let
that we've
not cut
received
into
from
the
the Ministry of
NDP's
Health.
time, please. Go ahead, Ms. Jelinas.
Thank you. I want to bring you back to the summer where you had your meeting and where you felt that things are not good here. We have more and more one medics rather than two. We have issues of delayed departures. We're going in the wrong direction. Were you the only one feeling that way?
Definitely not. It was unanimous. We as the frontline staff knew something changed, and it didn't change for the better. Change is good, but not this time.
But not this time. And did you actually formally speak as staff? Did you have a union meeting about it, or did you, or just talk between yourself during?
No, it was raised to our management, and I firmly believe that the individuals that were involved at the time basically stated, this is what we're doing, and this is why, and this is for the best interest of Ornge, because there was money issues. That's what they always rooted back to the money, and we just found that so disheartening that there's no more money, but yet our previous employer didn't have any problems with the money. They never once said to you, you're not allowed to take sick time anymore. You're not allowed to downstaff that helicopter. Or which base shall we close? We've never heard that before.
But then you were hearing it, and the answer was that it was because of the money, and it was better for Ornge to go down that route.
Yeah, or close a base and cut jobs. That's what we said.
A heck of a choice.
Yes.
So the medics talk between themselves, and you formally talk to management, and this is the kind of feedback that you got back. Did your union ever file grievances?
I'm unaware if they did. I think it's safe to assume they did, but I didn't see physical grievances. I know there was a lot. That was the hugest buzz around the whole base, across the whole province. Every single base we had our hands in outdoor.
And would you say that every single base did the same, went to their manager and were told pretty much the same thing?
I can only speak on behalf of what I know at the London base. I know for a fact that Ottawa did and Toronto did as well, because we're closer communities. I'm not certain about the North. I think it's safe to assume, for a lack of better words, that they did as well.
Who did you feel had the responsibility to put you back on the right track?
I felt it was upper management, our CEO and COO at the time, because I felt that it was their responsibility, roles and responsibility as leaders in our transport medicine and of Ornge to provide a service that was safe and effective and efficient for our fellow people in Ontario.
Coming back to some of the comments you were making to Mr. Klees, you really saw the relationship was you were working for the province of Ontario, you were working for Ontarians to help us in times of needs, and the province, the way it was explained to you, was not giving you enough money to do a good job?
That's correct.
That's the way it was explained to you?
That's correct. They said the money is gone.
And you thought that the province didn't care if we didn't provide a good service?
No, not once. Not once. We felt it was because of the management team, and especially had there been no Ornge Air, Ornge Global, and all this talk, there's so much emphasis on everything else. They said Ornge is fine, Ontario is good, and we're like, we're not good. Things have changed. We're worried. We're concerned. We're concerned about our fellow paramedics, our pilots. We're concerned about, more importantly, about the patients that we're transporting. This is at times unsafe for them, and I know there were some medics questioning their integrity at work. They wanted to quit, and that's not what we wanted.
That bad, eh?
Yes.
That bad. Do you know if any of them actually left Ornge?
I believe some did, yes. Not at London, but some were fed up with it. They had enough. It was breaking their moral and ethical code, their code of honor, so to speak. So.
And you figure the only one who could fix that was upper management, and upper management was busy someplace else in Brazil and everywhere else but in Ontario?
Yes.
All right. And so at no point did you see that the government could help put that agency on the right track?
That's a good question. In hindsight, perhaps we could have come to the government and said, that, look, we as medics, this is what we're finding. But it's funny how you always say something and expect someone else to do something. So that's a good lesson.
So if we were talking about base audits, the base audits, I take it, were done by people from the ministry.
Correct. Actually, some of them were paramedics, and that is their job to come around to the certain and do certain audits and such.
Did you ever talk to them?
Yes.
And what did they say?
They said, we're aware of it.
They were aware of it.
Yeah. There was actually, I received the one on one shift in particular. We received there was an investigations officer, and he took me aside, and I actually closed the door on my manager at the time when we went into the helicopter because they attempted to come in and out. And I said, "Oh, there's no room in here. You're well aware of that. There's only 2 seats on this side." And so I think he took the hint so that we could have a private conversation, and we basically stated that there were concerns, and he goes, yes, that's why I'm here. And he was there because there was concerns raised with regards to the CPR issue, which raised the eyebrows once again with regards to why we have Transport Canada's allowance on certain occasions to drop the stretcher. I don't know if you're aware of the medical interior within the AW139, but...
The temporary fix, yeah?
Yes, yes. So is that the best? With what we have to work with, it's sufficient.
And so the people that were doing the base audit, they became aware of the issue. They would tell you, we know about it, but they would not come forward with solutions?
I don't know. I don't know. They never got back to us and phoned me up and said, Brandon, this is what I've done. These are the individuals who are now involved, and here are their names and emails and contact information. You can contact them at your leisure. I had never received an email or any response from any of them. It was all pretty much in passing, so to speak. Oh, things are very rough at Ornge. I'm very understanding about what's going on. It's bad. It's very bad. And that was it.
And that was it?
That was it.
Everybody knew, and
yes.
Everybody knew, but nobody acted.
Yes, yes.
And that went on for months.
It did, yeah.
It must be really discouraging.
It was, but I have my family. It's a career. I mean, I love my career, but if it came down to it, I'd find something else.
It was at that point where if it kept going that way and your moral compass couldn't take it anymore, you would have just walked away?
No. No, I'm not the type of man to walk away. I think I probably would have gathered the troops, so to speak, and done something else. I probably would have marched to Minister of Health and said, look, we have to do something about this. But at the same time, when a lot of people, when the bubble was beginning to burst within a lot of persons, they were like, things were starting to change. Investigations were starting to occur, then that was like a breath of fresh air, so to speak, and we're like, finally.
Did you know that the Auditor General was auditing Ornge?
We had rumors, yes. and we smiled. We really did. And as frontline staff, we were not concerned. We were relieved. There was a heavy weight being lifted from our shoulders.
Because you knew that things could only get better?
And you're out of time, so we can move to the government, to Ms. Sams.
Yes.
Yeah, and just a quick comment. I want to apologize for what seems to be an attack on your integrity and going out and, being a single staff and make sure the patient gets cared for. I'm sure if we had a fire truck that was one man short, nobody would be critical of the firefighters for going into the burning building when they're one man short. So thank you for your dedication and doing what you do.
Thank you.
Mr. Moridi.
Well, thank you again, Mr. Doneff. Mr. Doneff, there are those people around that use this Ornge controversy to question the quality and qualification of Ornge pilots and the paramedics. They have questioned the skills of pilots and paramedics. They have questioned their level of training. What would you say to those who have been critical of Ornge, the quality of frontline workers at Ornge?
Sorry, there was a bit of noise.
Yes, there has been some criticism on the quality and qualifications of the frontline workers at Orange by some people. So what would you say to those people?
I say those are all wrong. I say that the roles and responsibilities of frontline staff have not changed. We are still tested annually, sometimes biannually. We have continuing medical training where I myself am side by side with doctors, and they train us. And if we're not up to par, we do not pass. So I have never ever doubted certification levels within our organization from frontline staff, and that goes across the board. That goes across from paramedics, all levels, we have to meet certification, all pilots, and all engineers. So I feel safe there.
Okay, thank you. Over the past few months, 8-9 months in the past, as you know, there has been a remarkable amount of media coverage about the Orange controversy. Most of it has been positive, and has not been positive actually. They were negative. How has this situation affected the morale of you and your colleagues at Orange?
Well, there has been some choice words, forked tongues towards us. But I mean, for the most part, we know it's not us. But it is very disheartening when you hear public saying, hey, how's that motorbike and how's that boat? I hope you're enjoying it. It's like, really? You really think I'm enjoying that motorcycle and that boat? I've never laid eyes on either, other than up at head office. I mean, I've never been invited to a cottage to use that stuff. I'm a frontline staff. I'm not privy to that information. So the morale, once again, if you allow, it's whichever you feed. If you allow the negativity to fester inside of you, then that's all it is. And it's going to grow, and it's like a cancer, so to speak. I don't allow it.
So would you think that it didn't affect the morale of the staff, of the frontline workers?
I think it affected some of the frontline staff more than others. I saw a great deal of depression amongst some of my colleagues, but for the most part, we've all come back to work. We still enjoy the time off, but you know, maybe not as much. Some individuals enjoy the time at work as they did prior to.
Okay. Some people have come to me and they said basically that, you know, enough already. They have said it's time to move forward. They have said we have heard all we are going to hear, and let's go back to what matters. That's basically delivering the best emergency health service to Ontarians. What do you think for this kind of comments, which sometimes I hear from people?
I like that comment. Let's turn it into something positive. Unfortunately, an atrocity was committed. We, as once again stated as a frontline staff, we had nothing to do with it. Were we aware of it? We heard rumors of it. But rumors are rumors, and we know what happens with rumors. It's just talk. But now when it's become into the light, it's disgusting to know that people would do that and then lie to your face and say that we have to close bases because we have no money, and yet here it is now in black and white, and it's being proven that there are some key individuals who are very unethical in their doings and dealings. And we don't want any part of that. We want our hands to be washed clean of it. We don't want to be known as Orange, the individuals who stole money from the government, because that's not what we're about.
Okay. Mr. Doneff, as you know, later the last year, and earlier this year actually, our government took a number of steps to address some of the problems at Orange. And that was based on the recommendations of Auditor General. And working with Orange, we have taken a number of steps to address some of those points which the Auditor mentioned in his report. Have you noticed a difference in the organization in recent months as a result of these steps our government has taken?
Yes. Yes, I have. For example, the delayed launching. So there's like a pre-alert, which I stated earlier. That's null and void now. and it was almost the day of when certain individuals were removed. It was no longer set precedents. It was now go back to the way you were, and when that phone rings, you go. So that is 100% better. With regards to the staffing, it's changed. Like I said, once again, all of a sudden, black and white. Key individuals were removed, and now we're doing our job with the partner in that seat to the best of their capability. If someone is able to come in and fill that seat, or if there's an extra medic within the province, like in Toronto and stuff, we have land crews as well. We'll pick them up and staff that machine to its capability. So that has changed, yes.
So that has a great impact on the morale of the staff and also on the operation of the organization.
Yes.
As I can see or hear from you, that the organization is working in a perfect situation, or in an ideal situation as you would expect.
Yes.
To operate.
And change is good, and there's still some issues, such as the medical interior. But it's my understanding that there is a committee with regards to that. I haven't heard anything within the last, I think, since summer, for some unusual reason. Things have sort of ceased. But I'm told that there is a legacy interior, is what they're calling it, is coming down the pipe, and there's some changes. So.
What major impact has the change of leadership had on the frontline workers at Ornge?
As stated, we were relieved, very relieved, because we saw that we were going down a road that we didn't like, and we knew it was going to be detrimental to patients' care, and we didn't like that. That's not our job. Once you started tying the hands that provided care to the patients, it became dangerous and, once again, unethical.
There have been a number of changes with respect to patient safety and related issues at Ornge. For example, I understand there have been some interim modifications to the medical interiors of AW139s, and there have been some changes with respect to the dispatch policies at Ornge. What policy changes have made the biggest difference, in your view, at Ornge?
As stated, the policy that was removed with us delaying our launch times, 100%, 100-fold. We would wait anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes. We would be there already. Within our radius of the London base, 30 minutes, that's a lifesaver. They speak of a golden hour within patients, and there's not a lot of validity within it, but it's still spoke of. So basically, once you're injured, in order to get an individual who is a traumatic patient to a surgeon within that hour, really, really increases their odds of survival. And when you delay us by an extra 10, 20, 30 minutes, just because of, and I understand because of money, I truly do, but how much is a life worth? That's the biggest thing.
And you're on your last minute.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Doneff, I understand that recently you have authored a book entitled Medic's A Little Helper. Could you tell us a bit about your book?
Yes, I can. Actually, I think I have a copy in my bag as well. Basically what it was is because of all of our training as paramedics, and prior to this career I was a registered nurse in the emergency room at St. Joseph's in London. And as stated, there's just so much information out there that is required upon us every year for our teachings and our certification. So it's a study guide that is basically documents and medical information as a pocketbook while you're on calls for a quick reference guide, and study tool for students or even graduates.
And thank you very much. Time is up. Thank you very much for coming before the committee this morning, Mr. Doneff.
The pleasure is mine.
Ready for the minister. Could we have a 3 or 4 minute break?
I think we have limited time, so I think we'll just keep going. Thank you. And our next presenter is the Minister of Health, so invite the Minister forward. Welcome, Minister, and you have time to make a statement up to 10 minutes if you wish, and then we'll go to questioning from the various parties. So thank you for coming back to the committee.
It's my pleasure to be here. I want to begin by thanking the committee for the second chance to be here with you. The work you've undertaken is very important, and I'm pleased to participate in it. We've come a long way over the last few months. Ornge is now under new management, and the mandate of the new organization is clear. While much has been accomplished, there is much more work ahead. I feel very honored to follow Brandon Danoff this morning. I've had the opportunity to meet many of the frontline staff at Ornge bases across Ontario, and I do want to thank them again, the employees at Ornge who have never, ever wavered in their dedication to the people and patients of Ontario. They deserve nothing but our highest praise and deepest gratitude. Our frontline staff and our new management team are supported by our new volunteer board of directors who stepped up on behalf of Ontario patients. Members of our volunteer board of directors are very busy, accomplished people, and yet each one of them said yes, without hesitation, to accepting this challenging task. The board's commitment is already showing results. I am, and Ontarians are, indebted to them. Much has been accomplished at Ornge. Perhaps most important is the change in culture since the old leadership was replaced. You heard about that from the previous witness. As he said, things changed dramatically. The culture of fear and intimidation has been replaced with a culture of continuous quality improvement. I cannot stress the importance of this change enough. As a government, we're also working diligently to implement reforms and act on all of the Auditor General's advice. There are 6 areas of reform I wish to highlight. Number 1, we now have a stronger performance agreement in place that reflects the rigorous oversight advised by the Auditor General. 2, the number of frontline staff has been increased to ensure more patients have access to this life-saving service. Number 3, patients are now unquestionably the number 1 priority of the management team. A patient declaration of values has already been established. 4, a patient advocate position is being created that will provide a dedicated professional to advocate on behalf of patients and their families and resolve any concerns they may have. 5, there is a new quality improvement program in place for air ambulance dispatchers, which is helping to improve communication and provide more timely care to those who need it. 6, in recognition that staff must always feel empowered to speak up and speak out, Ornge is developing a whistleblower policy. Entrenching that policy as a matter of law is one of the reasons why it's so important that we pass Bill 50. We heard from Brandon Danoff how important it is that frontline staff can speak up without fear. Bill 50 would also allow us to appoint a supervisor in extraordinary circumstances and would give the government the flexibility to change the performance agreement with Ornge at any time. Is this progress? I hope you would agree that the answer is yes. Do we have positive momentum? I believe so. But is the job finished? Absolutely not. There is more to accomplish. As Minister, I am dedicated to finishing the job, to identifying and implementing the changes required on behalf of patients and taxpayers, because they deserve the highest quality, standard of quality and excellence in their air ambulance service. I am asking for the help of this committee. By the end of this week, you will have sat for 75 hours. You will have heard from 54 witnesses and received tens of thousands of pages of documents. Your work has been extensive and thorough. Once again, I thank you for the efforts you have made. If we are to best serve the needs of patients, we need to be focused on solutions. I'll happily answer your questions today for a second time. I'll come back again if you need me to, and again after that. But at some point, on behalf of Ontario patients, I need your best advice. With that in mind, and respecting that the committee sets its own schedule and acts with full independence, my hope is that this committee will be in a position to table its report at the earliest available opportunity. A timely committee report focused on solutions would help to maintain momentum and would mean patients would benefit sooner. There are a couple of additional matters I wish to address directly. First and foremost, I want to repeat what I've said many times in the past. We should have done better. As the Auditor General has indicated, the original performance agreement was clearly inadequate. We have recognized that, and we have remedied that. We must be ever vigilant. Many of us share responsibility for what transpired at Ornge. As Minister, I take my full share of responsibility. I have acted quickly to fix the problems identified. Second, I want to respond to the testimony of Dr. Chris Mazza and the specific suggestion that he had always been willing to cooperate, that had he been asked to make any changes of any kind at any time, his answer would have been, yes, ma'am. Pure nonsense. I know it's pure nonsense by the fact that he rejected a request to have his salary publicly disclosed, while other senior management voluntarily complied. I know it's pure nonsense by his stonewalling of the Auditor General, who after 9 years of completing such audits, described Mazza's Ornge as, quote, one of the most difficult oddities we have ever encountered, unquote. I know it's pure nonsense by his manipulation of patient transfer numbers in reports to my ministry, and I know it's pure nonsense by the fact that there were at least 2 occasions where Chris Mazza avoided meetings with me as a minister and then claimed I would not meet with him. The first was when I visited the Ornge base in London. I expected he would be there, but he did not show up. Later, I sought a meeting with Ornge after learning that he was stonewalling the Auditor General and my ministry officials on a number of issues, not least of which was salary disclosure. Not only did I expect him to attend the meeting, I expected an explicit accounting from him as CEO. Again, he did not show. I think we can agree that was not a yes, ma'am. But it was a message received loud and clear, and it led directly down a path that ended with the complete overhaul of leadership at Ornge. I operate under no illusion that had Chris Mazza met with me, that he would have been forthcoming about his actions. Indeed, as recently as his appearance here, he refuses to acknowledge that he has done anything wrong. His actions are perhaps most disappointing because I meet real healthcare leaders every day. I meet them in our hospitals, in our long-term care homes, in our community health centers, across our entire healthcare system. Thousands of healthcare leaders in Ontario understand their responsibility to the people of Ontario. Every day they go above and beyond for the patients of Ontario. So when I see Chris Mazza walk into this room and suggest all we had to do was ask, I do not and I will not accept it. As the Minister of Health and Long-Term Care, I feel passionately about the efforts we're making to transform our healthcare system. And at the heart of that effort is a simple recognition that the system excels when we put patients first. It is their healthcare system, and it should be organized around their needs, not those of the minister or public servants or MPPs, not of providers or administrators. Collectively, we must all be here to serve patients, first, last, and always. I'm talking about an ethic of trust, a genuinely sacred trust between those who lead our healthcare system and the patients who depend upon it. There is no room for greed in Ontario's healthcare system. So the task now falls to all of us, and to me in particular as Minister, to put things right. I've described to you how we're already restoring integrity to the operations of our air ambulance service. We're on track to implementing all of the Auditor General's recommendations. Still, there is much work ahead of us, and I can assure you that my ministry is committed to that effort. And I believe that a timely, constructive report from this committee with a focus on practical reforms and future-oriented solutions will only help to strengthen that cause. So I want to thank the committee again for this opportunity to appear, and I'm very happy to take your questions.
Thank you for that opening statement, and it's the NDP will go first, and we will have about 25 minutes for each caucus, which I'll do in one slot, if that is fine, committee members.
Okay, flag me after 15.
Okay, very well, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for your opening remarks. It's still puzzling to me that we're still here this morning and still wondering what happened. And at the core of it are basically testimonies that are so diametrically opposed that it's really hard to believe that they can be part of the same story. So I will start with this question. When did you find out that things were wrong at Ornge?
When I was reappointed as Minister of Health in October of 2011, after the election campaign, there were a number of issues that I needed to be briefed on. One of them was Ornge. So I think within a week of my reappointment, I was briefed on the issues. I learned that the Auditor General was having difficulty getting answers to his questions, that he was met with legalistic responses. I learned that my own ministry officials also were not getting answers to questions they thought they should be getting from Ornge. So, one thing led to another, but I've, in December, had a meeting with the meeting I referred to in my statement, where Chris Mazza did not show up, but the COO, Tom Lapine, and Chair Rainer Belzer did. At that meeting, I made it very, very clear to them that I expected them to be forthright, to answer whatever questions the Auditor General had, whatever questions my ministry had, and to reveal the salaries that they had been hiding of their senior management. Shortly after that, they did in fact release that information, and that was when the house of cards started to tumble. When I saw the outrageous compensation being paid to Dr. Mazza, I knew there was a whole lot more that needed investigation. It was then that I sent in the forensic audit team, which ultimately has led to a referral to the Ontario Provincial Police. The board resigned. We replaced the CEO. The board resigned, and we put in a completely new board, a very high caliber board, a board that is doing a superb job in getting Ornge back on track. So to answer your question, I became aware of these issues, serious issues at Ornge, shortly after I was reappointed as minister. I acted immediately, and I acted aggressively.
As you said, we've had 54 witnesses come before us. I would say at least 45 of them have told us that they rang the alarm bell about Ornge to you directly, to other ministers, to many people within your ministry for the last 2 years. Minister, we have you on tape saying that when the corporate structure was presented to your ministry in January 2011, red flags went up. You knew then that something was wrong. You go on to say, we tried to get answers. We were stonewall. What happened from January 2011 till what you say happened in the fall?
So just to be clear, the January 2011 meeting that you're talking about was to brief members of my staff and ministry officials on restructuring or the creation of a different corporate structure at Ornge, much of which had already happened. I believe that your party was also briefed and the Conservative Party was also briefed on that change. And so we all had that information. That wasn't the problem. The problem was that numbers were being fudged, the number of patients being transported was being fudged. We did not have access to information that we now have access to on...
So the corporate structure was never an issue for you? You saw the web of for-profit company and that was not the problem?
The corporate structure was not the problem. The problem was the leadership at Ornge was more interested in what Ornge could do for them than what they could do for the patients of this province. It was an issue of the culture in that organization, and that is evidenced by their reluctance to cooperate, except through their lawyers in a very legalistic way, with the Auditor General, with myself. We were told at that time that they had based this corporate structure on the Alberta Model STARS, where they do have a robust charity affiliated with the air ambulance service that actually generates revenue back. We were told that up to $200 million would flow back to Ontario's air ambulance system from that structure.
Having a transfer payment agency have a charity is something you see in your ministry all the time. Having a web of for-profit to the scale that was in that briefing is something that I'm sure none of your bureaucrats had ever seen before, you had never seen before, and I certainly had never seen this before.
We had very probing questions asked of Ornge about the relationship between the for-profits and the not-for-profits, and we were given very explicit assurances, as I suspect you were and as I suspect the Progressive Conservatives were when they were briefed as well, that the money would not flow, public money would not flow into supporting the for-profit. In fact, it was the other way around. The direction of money would be from those other entities into the publicly funded system. That was how it was explained. As we know, thanks to the work of the Auditor General and others, that may not have been the way it actually happened.
Go ahead.
Minister Matthews, what it shows is, though, that there was systematically, all the way along through Ornge's inception to present, all the way along, there were briefings conducted with the ministry, apprising the ministry of what was going on. And all the way, the ministry never said, we don't like the direction you're going, we don't like what you're doing, we don't like this web of corporate for-profit entities. Nowhere along the way did the ministry ever say, stop what you're doing, we don't like the direction you're taking. Do you agree with that?
The ministry met and continues to meet with Ornge senior management quarterly. They go through various issues and get reports back from Ornge. That work happened then and continues to happen. So there was an ongoing relationship between the ministry and Ornge dealing with the service to Ontarians. That was the issue, the service to Ontarians. We contract with Ornge to provide air ambulance service. That was the relationship. We now, of course, have wound down or are in the process of winding down all of the other entities that were created.
But if that was not the problem, why are we winding them down? They were part of the problem, Minister, and they still are.
We want Ornge to focus solely on providing excellent air ambulance service to the people of Ontario.
Why didn't you want this back in January 2011? Why didn't you want you back in 2006 when we set this up when your government set this up that way? Why now?
So what I can tell you is that our focus has been on and continues to be on providing excellent care to the people of Ontario. It was thanks to the work of the Auditor General.
But that's what you promised to do. I mean, the Auditor General says, and we all know, in February 2006, you were supposed, the ministry is committed to set standard and monitor performance against those standards. The end result will be improved care, improved access, increase efficiency, increase effectiveness, etc., etc. This is what you were supposed to do from the start.
So the performance, the original...
Just to say that please let the Minister answer the questions. Don't cut her off.
The original performance agreement, we all recognize in hindsight, was not strong enough. The performance indicators did not go as far as, in hindsight, they should have, which is why we have a new performance agreement with much stronger oversight. We now can track, for example, how many calls come into Ornge but are refused, they are not completed. What's the cause? Why weren't they responded to? So we just have far more information now that, in hindsight, of course, we would have strengthened that performance agreement. But we have taken
But
the
you
advice
never
and moved
tried to
quickly.
strengthen it. There is 54 witnesses that have come, and none of them ever said, oh yes, the minister came to us, or the ministry came to us and they wanted changes. None of this ever happened. It was like this agency was running amok. Everybody was coming to your ministry, to yourself, to other ministers to tell you that this agency is running amok, and nothing got done.
So I have to take issue with some of the characterization of what was happening. Ornge Air Ambulance provides excellent care to the people of Ontario, and it is getting better and better. You heard from Brandon Danoff this morning about the changes he has seen at Ornge.
Yes, but I've heard about 1.4 million salaries, and I've heard about...
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll be the chair.
And we've heard about, you know, like for-profit entities, and we've heard about...
She's cut her off again. She's getting
I'll
answered.
keep... Go ahead.
We've heard about a lot of things that were wrong at Ornge. The salary, the loans that were done, the marketing agreements that were done. And all of this was being fed to you, the decrease in quality of care.
Oh, excuse me, none
of
of that information was made available. None of that information. I learned about Dr. Mazza's exorbitant salary in December of this past year, in December. On December 22nd, I think it was, on December 23rd,
but
a
why
forensic
didn't
audit
you
team
ask
was appointed.
before?
Please let her answer. Please let her answer. And then I am the chair.
We did ask.
We filed a Freedom of Access of Information for his salary 2.5 years ago.
Yes, and you heard from Patricia Lee that we did not have that information. There was no information provided to the government that outlined income Chris Mazza was getting from anything but the not-for-profit Ornge Air Ambulance Service. All of the other income he was hiding, and it was only after explicit, clear instructions from me that we needed that information was revealed. You heard Dr. Mazza, when he testified, he still claims that his compensation was a fraction of what we know it is to be. So we did not have that information. Trust me, had we had that information, we would have acted immediately, and that's what we did. When we got the information, we acted immediately.
The issue isn't that you didn't have the information. The issue is that when you were alerted with a Freedom of Information request, when you were alerted that that was something that the parties wanted, the NDP party wanted, that you didn't take any steps at that point. Later on, I'm sure you took steps, and we all see that steps were taken. But when you were alerted back in 2010, why weren't steps taken then? Why wasn't it put as clearly as this? Listen, disclose your salary, or we'll withhold payments. Disclose your salary, or there will be some severe repercussions. Why were those steps taken back in 2010 when you were given this red flag, when you were given this warning on behalf of the NDP?
With the benefit of hindsight, of course we all would have done things differently. With the benefit of hindsight. If I had known then what I know now, of course I would have acted then. But what I can tell you is that the Auditor General was doing his audit. He always has done an excellent job. I had confidence in the work of the Auditor General. So I can tell you, as soon as I had known that salary, I would have acted immediately, as I did act immediately. But I can tell you that...
There were also 47 questions from
Again, once again, with this committee, if we can if we can keep it as civil as possible. And
I'm bringing it back to, my colleague said you had an opportunity to ask for the salary. Howard Hampton sat here, questioned 47 questions about Ornge in 2010. Not one of them were answered till March of 2012. When there's 47 questions, ask an estimate that don't go no answers for till March of 2012, and then we were told, see what's happening. those were also warning signs. Why didn't you look?
So I've answered your question. I acted as soon as I became aware and I'm grateful to the Auditor General, because the Auditor General is the one who raised these issues, who informed my ministry. I had a conversation with the Auditor General. I asked him, I confirmed with him that salary disclosure was part of what he was looking at as the Auditor General. I guess we've been through this. I'll continue to answer if you wish, but I really am looking for your best advice as we move forward, because that is what it is time to do. We have to say, what lessons have we learned, and how are we going to make sure this doesn't happen again? We are implementing all of the recommendations of the Auditor General. We have a very strong new board in place. They are driving significant change. You've heard about that. So from this committee, I'm very much looking forward to hearing from you. What do you think could have happened? What do we have to put in place to make sure it never happens again? We owe that to the people of this province.
The point is, Minister, is that you had the power to act all along, but you chose to act after it hit the front page of the paper. And this is why we're still here today, because the warning signs were coming from all sides. They were coming from the NDP, they were coming from the PC, they were coming from medics coming to you, they were coming from the EMS branch who was doing audit and saying, things are bad here, things are not doing, things are bad at Ornge. But yet, all of this warning sign, it didn't matter how loud it rang. It didn't seem to leave an impression on you. It kept on going. Once it hit the front page of the paper, you had all of the power necessary to act, and you did, and you acted big time. That shows to me that you had the power all along. Why did it take so long?
So let's put things in perspective here.
Sure.
There were questions asked, I believe, in the spring session of 2011. There were 600 question period questions. 3 of them from the Conservatives related to Ornge. So let's not inflate
47
the focus,
from the NDP during estimates?
Not during question period. I mean, I wouldn't overstate your laser-like focus on this issue, nor would I overstate the laser-like focus of the official opposition. It was the Auditor General who, through the diligence of his staff, revealed information, and frankly it was also the work of some very good journalists in this province who revealed information. It was when that information came to my attention that I acted immediately. So I think you would agree that the actions that I took were the right actions, the appropriate actions, but I still very much look forward to your advice on what we still need to do to make it better and to make it stronger.
So Minister Matthews, I want to paint a bit of a picture here, and I'll ask you this question. So my colleagues' concerns are that as a part of your obligation as a minister, that oversight should occur throughout your tenure, not just when the Auditor General does great, diligent work, or not when star reporters or other reporters do great and amazing work. The issue is you took office, or you were the minister, appointed as a minister in October 2009. From October 2009 to October 2011, in that span of about 2 years, my question is this. In those 2 years, there were repeated briefings throughout those 2 years where Ornge met with ministry officials and briefed the ministry about what they were doing. They briefed them about the direction they were taking. They briefed the ministry about the purchase of aircraft. They briefed the ministry about the overall structure that they were implementing. All these briefings took place. Never in those 2 years did the ministry ever say, we don't like what you're doing, we want you to do something differently, stop what you're doing. Why did the ministry and why did you as a minister not take any action to oversee what was happening in Ornge for those 2 years when there were numerous red flags brought up by people who were employees, by opposition members? There were a number of red flags set off, and you were being briefed regularly. Why did none of those briefings result in any action by the ministry?
The very clear answer is because Ornge was not giving us that information. You know, they did not give us information on salary disclosure. You know they did not give us correct information on the number of patient transfers. You know they withheld information on some issues, on incidents that should have been reported to the ministry. You know they withheld information. So it did get to the point where we were able to, with the help of the Auditor General and the forensic audit team and the new leadership at Ornge, expose these practices. So that is where we are now. We are fixing the problems that were created.
I'll save my last 5 minutes.
Sorry.
I'll save my last 7 minutes.
Okay, very well. We'll move on to the government then. Mr. McNeely.
Chair, I'd like to ask the Auditor General a couple of questions to start with.
Of course, Mr. McNeely.
When did you start your audit?
We would have started our field work probably in January 2011. I think I phoned Dr. Mazza in the late fall and to give him the good news about the auditors were coming in. And we had a lengthy chat over the phone, mostly talking about timing and what we would look at and that sort of thing. And I think my field staff ended up getting in there, I think, in late December or early January, and we would have wrapped up our field work towards the end of May. But as I've indicated previously, we did have some difficulties getting information and documents, and I can give you more chronology if you'd like, but maybe I'll wait to see if you'd...
When did you report to the government?
We had an oral... we always, the way a value for money audit works, we have an oral debriefing and then we go to a draft report. We had an oral debriefing with Ornge and with the ministry in June, but there wouldn't be anything that I would call a hard copy document. But we outlined some of the issues and the concerns, some of which we've discussed today, and then we provided Ornge and the ministry with a draft report in mid to late December. And then normally, by way of background, I probably, I think the minister referred to the 9 years I've been doing this, I probably had about 135 value for money audits. This was the only audit out of 135 that we just could not get wrapped up in time to get into the annual report, because we report all of our value for money work and all of our other work in one annual report. And on this particular one, we just, as the ministers indicated, we had just difficulties getting information, getting reliable information, and we decided that we could not make the translation deadline, which for us is basically late October. So at that point, we basically, quite frankly, we put it on the back burner for a few months while we got the rest of our stuff done, and we ended up tabling it as a special report, as you know, Mr. McNeely, in March.
Did the minister help you get the information?
I have to say we didn't, we basically said to the ministry, we're eventually, and I think what I testified the last time when Dr. Mazza was here, is that we eventually got most of the information, but it took an abnormally long length of time. And, we discussed with the ministry that we were having some issues in September, but we really felt it was our job to get the information and deal with Ornge. So it wasn't in the sense, it would be unfair to basically say, we went to the ministry and they didn't do anything. We felt it was more an issue with us. Our main issue in September with the draft report was saying to the ministry, and really, the issue's been raised where there are a lot of changes from the initial draft report to what you had in March. And I have to say, we did make some changes in wording and we changed some of the facts. But the major issues that we had with respect to, we really felt the ministry needed to get more information to properly oversee Ornge. We indicated that part of that was due to the limitations of the performance agreement, but we also did say we think the ministry should be pushing harder in some of the areas to get more reliable information. But many of the areas that we kind of set out in September, they ended up in our final report in March, Mr. McNeely.
Thank you. And Minister, thank you very much for being here today. And I know that you've put in a lot of work towards restoring confidence in Ontario's air ambulance system. And that includes, and we heard that from critical care paramedic this morning, that included visiting. And this really, this was something that impressed him up in Thunder Bay, I believe. So you have gone to Ornge bases. And you've met the frontline staff. Can you tell this committee about what you have learned from Ornge's frontline staff?
Well, first and foremost, I have learned that these are extraordinarily dedicated, highly skilled people. We are extremely blessed to have the frontline staff at Ornge that we have. And I talked to them about about why they got into this field. I talked to them about the changes they were seeing at Ornge. I talked to them about I asked them for their advice on what more we needed to do. So I can tell you that some of our frontline paramedics have been, and pilots and engineers and others have been very hurt by some of the allegations that have been made in the legislature, in this committee, about their dedication and their professionalism. These are extraordinary people, and we see on the news from time to time them in action. They go into situations that I tell you, there aren't too many people I know who could do the work they do. These are very highly skilled, dedicated professionals. They want to do the very best they can for the patients they serve. And you heard Mr. Danoff this morning expressing that. He is driven by a desire to help people on the worst day of their life. And that's what drives these people. We have remarkable staff on the front lines, staff who were let down by the leadership, the old leadership at Ornge. I can tell you I heard many, many stories about how attempts to make things better were shut down. They weren't just ignored, they were actually threatened. I think you heard today about a threat to fire a whole base, to shut down a whole base. There were, it was a management style that when I hear about it, I am embarrassed, and I just find it beyond understanding why anyone would would attack their own frontline staff the way that I heard Dr. Mazza do. I heard stories of Dr. Mazza doing that.
Just yesterday, everyone on this committee received a letter from a member of the frontline staff in Thunder Bay, Pool Eric Binderup, who's a senior pilot for the fixed wing operations. I would like to read part of this letter in the record. We'll table the entire document. It's here, Mr. Clerk, if people want for distribution. Pardon me?
It's been distributed already.
Is that distributed?
Yes.
So I'll just go and read that letter. My name is Pool Eric Binderup, and I am the senior pilot for the fixed wing operations at Global Air. I am one of 45 professional pilots that serve the province of Ontario flying the Pilatus PC-12NG aircraft. I am writing this letter in the hope that the voices of those professional men and women can be heard. The Honourable Deb Matthews' installation of Mr. Ron McCurley as interim CEO and the major corporate restructuring that followed gave us a sense of hope that we would be able to continue to serve the people of Ontario as medevac pilots. What we were not prepared for was the way the media and some members of the provincial government portrayed the operation and what we do. We were portrayed as a burden on the system, called a safety hazard, an accident waiting to happen. We've been misrepresented by the press and have even been jeered publicly. And there have been many other derogatory statements made about the operation of the aircraft. While this has been unsettling and frustrating to say the least, we were perhaps most unprepared for how some of our colleagues, paramedics and helicopter pilots, gathered and presented information that was biased or flawed with the seeming intent of shutting down the operation. Some of that information has been heard by the committee. I cannot state emphatically enough that these individuals do not speak for me or the fixed wing pilot group, nor do they have our support. But the intent of this letter is not to dwell on the negative, unfounded opinions of a few misinformed individuals. To the contrary, we have been overwhelmed by the support we have received from individuals like the Honourable Deb Matthews and interim CEO Ron McCurley. And I wish for the rest of the Standing Committee, indeed the people of Ontario, to understand the pride that we take every day in serving as medevac pilots. We operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The aircraft that we fly, the Pilatus PC-12NG, is one of the most state-of-the-art aircraft in the class. With this aircraft, we have more technology and safety features at our fingertips than many of the airliners in operation at the major airlines today. Our maintenance department is second to none, and keeps these aircraft in top condition. In closing, I want to reiterate that not only are we proud of the service we provide to the people of Ontario as medevac pilots, we're also proud to be a part of something special. Many of us have been with Ornge from the very beginning of the fixed-wing operation. We have had many challenges to overcome as a brand new air operator, and we've met every challenge head-on. We continue to grow in our operation as we all understand what it means to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. For this reason, we stand behind people like Ms. Matthews, who are committed to making a difference in the lives of Ontarians, not by shutting down Ornge, by picking up the pieces, solving the problems, and creating a world-class medevac operation that not only we, the pilots, can be proud of, but the people of Ontario can be proud of as well. Thank you for your time and consideration. Poole Eric Bitterup, Ornge PC-12 Captain. And Minister, I know that you've also spent some time at Ornge's head office. Can you tell this committee about what you have discussed with the new leadership at Ornge?
Well, there's a very clear mandate with the new leadership, and they are embracing that mandate. Number one, the issue of patient safety. That, first and foremost, was the issue that I wanted them to focus on immediately. They've made tremendous progress. You've heard about the interiors of the aircraft. We had been assured that that was not a problem, that problem had been rectified. Well, in fact, that was not the case, but I'm happy to report now that the interiors are now they're moving into the second phase of the appropriate configuration of those of the interior of those helicopters. I am delighted that Barry McClellan, who is the CEO at Sunnybrook Hospital, a former chief coroner of the province of Ontario, a very highly respected individual, is leading up their quality improvement work. So on the issue of patient safety, there is significant progress that is being made. I also instructed them to wind down the for-profits, and that work is underway. Many have already been wound up, and the others are in process. It is a complicated arrangement, but they are making progress on winding down those for-profits. So I have learned about the commitment of those board members. I also had an opportunity to visit the communications center, where I think all of us as MPPs learn more when you go and actually have a site visit. So I was able to talk to those people who work in the communications center, better understand how they triage patients, how they follow aircraft, how they ensure that people get the care they need as quickly as possible. Air ambulance is a very complicated business because there are a lot of different components that need to be coordinated for the benefit of an individual patient at a specific moment. So I was able to see, when I went to the Ornge head office, what happens in that communication center. I was able to tour the building and saw the extravagance of the previous leadership, and but most importantly, I was able to meet with the board and get a report on how they are moving forward on the issues that had been raised.
Thank you. Chair, how much more time have I got?
You have about 13 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I would like to read in the record part of a letter from John Cunane, as the Chief of Niagara EMS, to the interim CEO of Ornge, Ron McCurley. I will table the entire letter to the committee. You have already a copy. So I will just read parts of Mr. Cunane's letter. This had to do with a very unfortunate accident in the Niagara Gorge.
Chair, if you could provide a copy then for the other...
We have a copy here. Can I continue? So this was on the scene of that accident. After an on-scene assessment, and once our paramedic crews knew what they were faced with, they requested air ambulance at approximately 18 1811 hours. After doing weather check, air accepted with an ETA of 20 minutes. From 1846 to 19 hours and 4 minutes, there was a constant communication between the Niagara Ambulance Dispatch, NACS, and the 799 and our ground ops supervisors to confirm a landing site. Together, 799, our ops supervisor, and NACS coordinated an appropriate landing site at the nearby park. The flight medics were then transported by Niagara EMS to the scene at the top of the Niagara Gorge. On arrival at the scene, the 799 medics received a scene and patient update and began interacting with other responders at the scene, NEMS, Fire, Niagara Parks Police, and NRPS, as well as one patient's family member to describe the plan for patient treatment and transport and provided leadership on patient care from this point forward. Once the patient was extricated from the gorge, responders, upon the direction of the flight crews, assisted the 799 medics in properly immobilizing the patient and moving him to our ambulance for transport to the landing site. According to my senior manager on site, this was seamless and well-coordinated effort on the part of all responders, resulting in timely and effective care for the patient. I believe this is a classic example. This is John Cunane, Chief Niagara EMS. I believe this is a classic example of how an integrated land and air system should operate. In this case, the patient received the very best care possible by all responding agencies.
Chair, we'll save the rest of our round till next time.
Okay, very well. In which case, we will move on to the official opposition. Mr. Klees.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, I want to make it very clear that no one around this table or anyone in the legislature has ever, over the last number of months since this Ornge issue became an issue, has ever called into question the dedication of our frontline staff, be they paramedics or be they pilots. What we have called into question is your leadership and the oversight, clearly the failed oversight of your ministry of our air ambulance service. I'd like to ask you this. We've heard your excuses as to why you didn't intervene sooner. You tell us that you either were not aware, that you were lied to, that you weren't given proper information. I'd like to ask you, with regard to a letter that you received on May the 4th, or dated May 4th, 2011, from the Ontario Air Transport Association. Members of the committee have copies of that letter. Do you recall the letter I'm referring to?
I am aware of it, yes.
Okay, we can distribute this, clerk, if you like. In that letter, there was specific reference made to a number, and I say a number of concerns that the Ontario Air Transport Association raised. And they deal extensively with issues that relate to matters of patient care, conflicts of interest. I'd like to ask you this question. Did you ever acknowledge that letter?
What I would like to do first is take issue with your first statement, Mr. Klees. I would like to read back to you some statements you have made that undermine confidence.
This is not a debate. I'm asking.
Undermine confidence in the frontline staff. You have made a statement, Mr. Klees, and
let's keep this civilized, please. So.
We are asking the questions here, Minister.
And you may not like her answer, but we have to let her answer.
Well, what we don't have to do, Chair, is allow the Minister to deflect a very specific question about a very important stakeholder group. And I'm asking the Minister very specifically, did you ever acknowledge the letter from the Ontario Air Transport Association, yes or no?
And we'll let the Minister answer.
And I am, as you prefaced your comment as you prefaced your question with a comment, I will preface my answer with a comment. You, Mr. Klees, have made some very damaging comments. Let me just refresh your memory. I would not want to be a pilot. I would not want to be a paramedic. I would not want to be a patient knowing the track record of these helicopters, I would take my chances from getting from point A to point B with some other means. You don't consider that to be an insult to the staff at Orange who are responsible for the maintenance of those aircraft?
No, I do not, Minister. What it is an insult of the management and of your lack of oversight in ensuring that we have the proper equipment and the proper resources. We heard from a paramedic just before you came here who continues to tell us that they were desperate to be assured of proper resources. They were told that because of the lack of funding, that a base was going to be cut down. That is the concern of frontline paramedics. Now, if you're finished with your preamble, would you answer my question? Did you ever acknowledge the letter from the Ontario Air Transport Association or not?
I would also like to remind you of the time
what are you hiding?
Please. I am hiding.
Standing order, standing order 23K. I'm entitled to make a point of order pursuant to a standing order.
Let the minister answer.
No, Chair. I want to draw attention
You don't have the floor, so Minister, please answer.
Well, Chair, you should have the orders if you're chairing the committee. Standing order 23K
Minister.
says a member shall be called to order if he or she is using abusive or insulting language, and I take...
Go ahead, Minister.
Mr. Klees, you said on March the 6th, an Orange contracted PC-12 medevac Pilatus fixed-wing aircraft crash-landed at Timmins Airport on January 13th of this year. The reason, its single engine failed. Do you recall asking me that question?
I do indeed.
Well, in fact, we now have the truth on what happened there. We have a letter from that has been delivered to this committee stating that your comments completely misrepresent our operation and especially the level of safety we work so hard to maintain. So the only point that I'm making is that you have heard from frontline staff who are doing their very, very best. Our job now is to make the kind of changes, continue to make the changes that we've been making to ensure that patients get the best possible care. That goal is not supported by you continuing to make completely erroneous statements about the safety of care at Orange. So on behalf of the frontline staff, on behalf of the paramedics, the pilots, the doctors, the engineers, all of the people who work at the communications center, all of the people at Orange, 600 staff, would you stop running down the organization and start being part of the solution? We are looking to this committee. I am hungry for this committee to finish its work, to write its report, to give me your recommendations on what we need to do to continue to strengthen air ambulance in this province. It is not supported when you go off.
Go ahead with the
But
question.
to answer your question,
Minister, let
yes,
me give you
we
that
got
recommendation.
this letter.
Let me give you that recommendation.
I would like the recommendation of the committee.
Chair.
Your personal recommendations are interesting, but it is the committee's work that I am looking forward to hearing.
Because you know my recommendation would be, first of all, start with your resignation, put some qualified people into a management position so that we can restore confidence in our air ambulance service. You didn't listen to stakeholders. I'll answer the question for you because the stakeholders said you didn't acknowledge that letter. You didn't acknowledge repeated calls from stakeholders. Why did you not then listen at least to your own ministry advice? I'm going to distribute, Chair, if you would. There was an email that was distributed, and attached to it is a confidential advice to the minister. Once again, I'm going to ask you, when you see that document, did you ever see this confidential advice to the minister?
I'm sorry, what are you referring to here?
I'm referring to an email that starts off from Malcolm Bates, who is a director of the Emergency Health Services branch, to Joy Stevenson at the Ministry of Health, asking her to arrange for an analysis of the consolidated statements of Ornge. And attached to it is the response entitled Emergency Health Services Request, Ornge Financial Statements.
Chair, it's a single-page document. Give the minister a chance to read over the email and the attached document.
Chair, I'll gladly take the minister through this document, and Mr. Zimmer can watch. This document that's marked confidential advice to minister was issued in response to an email from Malcolm Bates. Mr. Bates refers in his email to Patricia, having requested the analysis. Who would that be?
I suspect that would be Patricia Lee.
Did she ever discuss this document with you?
I don't recall that, no.
So apparently Ms. Lee asked the Minister of Finance to review the Ornge financial statements. The response was given in a confidential advice to the Minister, and Ms. Lee never shared that with the Minister. Is that what you're telling me?
I think I will take a minute to review if it would be possible to come
Yes.
back to this perhaps.
If you want to take a minute to look it over.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I will need some advice, perhaps.
Those are mine. Those are mine. I'm sharing my document with you, Mr. Zimmer.
Did you want Minister or staff to look at it?
Perhaps I would like to give you an appropriate answer, and I will...
Let's have a recess. I don't want this to...
Okay, we'll have a 5-minute recess for
Sure,
you.
thank you.
I'll call the committee back to order then, and let's go to Mr. Klees, or the Minister. Are you ready to answer, or do you need anything further from Mr. Klees?
Sure, I'd be happy to. First of all, this is a very complex document. I have not seen this document before. I do think that it is of a detailed nature, and I would need some advice. In fact, better to get people who are the author of the document to testify as to what's in this document. What I can tell you, I know that Peter Wallace, who is a former Deputy Minister of Finance, did testify already, and he has spoken to the issue of the bonds. And I can read from Hansard, you have been through this territory before, but let's go there again. On April 18th, 2012,
Speaker, this is ridiculous.
No, let the Minister answer, and then you'll get a chance.
So what Peter Wallace, when he was asked about exposure, and I assume that's what this is about, exposure of the taxpayer, he was clear that bondholders do not have direct access back into the provincial credit. He said, from a Government of Ontario perspective, with respect, we were assured, we understand factually that there is adequate insulation from the province's credit.
Speaker, given the Minister's conduct here in wanting to simply chew away our time, I will change my format, and I will simply make the points that I believe need to be on the record. First of all, this is a confidential advice to minister document. I find it passing strange and quite frightening, actually, that the Minister would receive a document like this and wouldn't know of its existence. I question seriously
with
the
respect,
role,
Mr. Klees, you
Chair,
have been a
Chair,
minister. You understand the
Go ahead,
protocols.
Go ahead, Mr.
The reality is that this document, which was presented to you, and if you didn't receive it, certainly it was presented to Ms. Lee in July of last year. The first item on this document refers to a loan receivable. This comes right out of the documents, the financial statements of Ornge. There is a loan, I'm quoting from the document, there is a loan receivable of $4.3 million in 2010-11. This is a concern, as Ornge is not in the business of advancing monies, and these are taxpayer dollars that have been lent. Are you aware of the details of the loan? Note 2 does not provide any information to properly assess the risk. We understand that a vendor provided seed money to Ornge to properly assess the risk, to prepare the business plan for the new ventures. We hope that this is not linked to the transaction. If the transaction was a related party, this would have needed to be included in the note disclosure. The next item, restricted cash. The balance has declined. This is a restricted cash of Ornge. The balance has declined significantly from the prior year, $113 million, down to $11.8 million. Most of the balance was internally restricted funds in Ornge Issuer Trust, related to acquisition of aircraft and infrastructure. Again, this flags the issue of the province's funds being used to secure assets. We need to ensure that we still have title to the assets in the event of financial issues with Ornge, as we may need to step in to assume the debt if there were issues. The next item, capital assets. The balance has significantly increased this year from $94.6 million to $664 million. In part, this relates to the sale and leaseback transaction in Ornge's building. If this has occurred, then we need to ensure that the terms are at fair market value, and that if the transaction was used to unlock value for the new business venture, that the value has not been transferred to other profit-oriented ventures within the Ornge Group. Number 5, the bond payable. The bond payable has increased from $272.5 million to $295.7 million. This is due to the issuance of a first mortgage Series A bond on January 31, 2011 for general corporate and investment purposes. We are concerned with the note disclosure which states the bond is secured by a first fixed and specific mortgage pledge, charge, assignment, and security interest in and to the organization's corporate building, the related land and fixtures, and all benefits to be derived from these assets, including the lease of these assets. If Legal Services has not reviewed this bond, we recommend that they should. Next is revenue, in item number 7. The Ministry accounts for $149.3 million of Orange's total revenue. It goes on to say, the transfer agency rules require that transfer partners, recipients deposit all funding from the province in an interest-bearing account and remit this money back to the Consolidated Revenue Fund. If this is investment income, it should be reviewed to ensure it is compliant with the performance agreement and the transfer partner agreement. Number 9 refers to foreign exchange and derivatives, referring to the bond, which was issued in U.S. funds, which is against the performance agreement. I quote, "This is an issue fully discussed in the past. Initially, unhedged bond and the risk that this has to Orange and to the province in consuming expenses that could otherwise have been spent in Orange's core business. Specific warning about that bond issue." It goes on in number 10, I quote, "In 2010, 9 entities were included in the audited financial statements: Orange, Orange Peel, a numbered company, Orange Co., Orange Global, Orange Real Estate, Orange Foundation, J Smarts, Orange Issuer Trust. However, in 2011, only 6 entities are included." Questions? Number 12. There is significant commitments for principal payments on the bond and for these lease commitments on the building pursuant to the sale and leaseback. It goes on to refer to the fact that the province will be on the hook for the additional payments that are coming due. Here in Note 6 of this document, and I quote from the document that was sent to you, Minister, as confidential advice, I quote, "In particular, Orange appears to have substantial principal payments on its loans coming due in several years, which could impact on its financial status." Note 8 of the audited financial statements of Orange discloses the principal payments on the bonds payable. In 2012, December of this year, an additional $83,000. Increasing next year to $3,285,000. In 2014, increasing to $6,764,000. Minister, this is disclosure to you by your own ministry that Orange is obligated, in addition to the interest payments on those bonds, to begin paying principal back. My question to you is this: given the fact that Orange has no other income other than the transfer payments from the Ministry of Health of $150 million, where are all of these payments coming from that Orange is obligated to pay, if not from the province of Ontario? And if, as you say, you're not on the hook for this, who is?
And you have 7 minutes. Just you want to be asked about your time.
Thank you. I'll pass for the next time, after the Minister answers your question.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
What I can do is refer you back to the testimony of Peter Wallace, the then Deputy Minister of Finance, who made it...
Any of these questions?
He made it very clear that the taxpayers of Ontario are not on the hook.
This document...
This is a document
This document belies that testimony.
So I heard a lot of ifs in there. This is a document dated June 2011. I obviously would be happy to take a further look at it and get an answer to you. But I can tell you, Mr. Klees, you have many, many times made statements that upon further examination turned out to be simply not true. Let me give you another example. You claimed that people were dying as a result of Orange. Well, the chief coroner said, the chief coroner, and I take his word over yours, I'm afraid, on issues related to fatalities. The chief coroner said, of our completed investigations, there have been no cases.
Of the completed investigations.
You claim people are dying. You do not have the qualifications to be a chief coroner.
I suggest you don't either.
I do not, but I rely on someone who does have those have those credentials, and the team of people, they do thorough investigations. You made allegations. They were not true allegations. You claimed in question period that the tail rotors fall off these helicopters on March 5th, 2012. Well, in fact, we now know, because we do always look into whatever allegations you make, we now know that the memorandum that Mr. Klees was referring to did not apply to Orange's helicopters.
They were
You have
AW-139s. Of course not. Minister,
time and time
Minister,
again,
you
you
can't
have
be
made
serious.
allegations that have turned out after
can't be
investigation
serious.
to be completely erroneous.
You really
So
think that excuses you?
I fully expected that you would drop something today.
Unbelievable.
I will undertake to investigate here, Speaker.
Could
Unbelievable.
have some order in this committee, please? And
Unbelievable.
So we can hear the answer of the Minister. Continue, Minister. Are you
Time
done
for
your
your
answer?
nap,
Okay,
Mr.
we'll move on to the NDP then. Go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Singh?
Thank you very much. Minister, you indicated when I asked you the question regarding your tenure from October 2009 to October 2011, you indicated a number of things that you didn't know, that Ornge hadn't told you. And I accept there's certain things that Ornge didn't tell you, but there's certain things you did know that you didn't mention. You did know that in 2009, Dr. Mazza's salary was off of the Sunshine List. You were aware of that. Your ministry was also briefed that the changes that the ministry did not have any issue with would allow his salary to come off. The structure changes that allowed his salary to not be disclosed was disclosed to you, that there would be certain changes that you were aware of. You were also aware of, in 2010, an audit, the results of which, the audit was conducted previously, but the results of which were released in November 2010. That audit released a number of recommendations. Those were also given to you, in addition to our prior comments regarding the questions asked and estimates and the freedom of information request. You had all of that from October 2009 to October 2011, yet you didn't take any action with respect to any of those items, and you were tacitly agreeing without saying anything in opposition to those.
So I just want to correct your characterization of the, I think you're talking about the MNP report.
Right.
So the report states that overall, our review indicated that Ornge is using provincial grant funding economically, efficiently, and for the purposes intended in providing air ambulance and related service for the province. I can tell you that this report was handed over to the Auditor General to provide whatever information it might to the work in his office. So this report did give us this confidence. We later found out that further digging would have resulted in perhaps a different outcome.
Just to keep us to what Mr. Klees was saying, there's now millions of precious healthcare dollars that have been wasted at Ornge. We now have news report claiming that Augusta Westland wants to recoup $1.8 million from Ornge. Minister, will the taxpayers be on the hook for this? And if not the taxpayers, who will pay?
So what I can tell you is that my understanding is that is of a company that has now gone bankrupt. So one of the for-profit entities that no longer exists. So I can tell you that that is not of concern to taxpayers.
All right. Well, the Auditor General made 5 recommendations. All recommendations required actions from your ministry. He said there were some problems at Ornge, but he also pointed to huge problems within your ministry. I want you to tell us, do you acknowledge that by failing to conduct proper oversight, by failing to listen to whistleblowers that try to blow the whistle, by failing to act on some of the recommendations from the audit, and basically by taking the words of Mr. Apps, the president of the Federal Liberal Party, you are, if not completely, in part responsible for the scandal at Ornge?
What I can tell you is that as soon as I became aware of problems, I took decisive and immediate action. When the Auditor General told me he was having trouble getting information, same story that my ministry officials were telling me, when I called, Chris Mazza, but he didn't come, into my office for a conversation about you need to be accountable. You need to answer questions of the Auditor General. The Auditor General is not getting answers to questions he's asking. They needed to release that information. They subsequently started to release some of it. It was the issue around salaries that was just outrageous, that triggered the forensic audit, that has triggered an OPP investigation. It is very clear that the leadership at Ornge hid information from us, fudged information, did not provide us with the information we needed. It's also very clear, and the Auditor General has pointed out, that the information that we were mandated to receive through the performance agreement simply was not adequate. So now it's time we are making appropriate changes, and it is time that we pass Bill 50 because we must entrench further oversight into legislation. We must protect whistleblowers in legislation. We must give the Minister the power to appoint a supervisor in legislation. So I look forward to what the advice this committee can offer in order to strengthen air ambulance service. That's what this is all about. We have a collective duty to the patients of Ontario.
If you're done with your answer, we'll move to the government.
How much time do I have left?
9 minutes.
Thank you very much. First of all, just if we could just clarify this document. First of all, Minister, for the benefit of everybody who isn't yourself a minister or Mr. Klees, who is a past minister, does every document that says confidential advice to minister end up on the minister's desk?
No, it does not.
So when one asks the question, did you receive this document, just because it says confidential advice to minister, that is not necessarily related to did you actually see it?
Absolutely. And any past minister or current minister would know that.
Exactly. In fact, even parliamentary assistants have generally figured it out.
Certainly Joe McCarthy would know.
So this particular document, going back to the exchange that we had earlier with the auditor, is a request from Ministry of Health staff at the end of June. So this may have been a follow-up to the preliminary verbal conversation.
Just want to interrupt for a second, just to ask the cameras to give a bit of space to the, please.
And so in response to that, the ministry staff asked the Ministry of Health staff asked the Ministry of Finance staff to provide some financial analysis based on the consolidated statements, which would be information that the Ministry of Finance would be responsible for preparing. In July 22nd, that analysis is returned. That document is what's been tabled, and all the people who are copied on the return document and have this document distributed to them are in fact all bureaucrats. None of them are political staffers. None of them are you. They're all political staff. They're all bureaucrats. They're all ministry staff. Did any of the people who had a copy of this document ever share it with you?
No, they did not.
So while it may contain interesting information, and I think it is worth a read, it's not information of which you were aware in the summer of 2011.
That is absolutely correct. I have not seen that document before it was provided to me just a few minutes ago.
Thank you. Now, if we could have just follow up on Madame Gélina's question. She referenced the recommendations that were eventually made by the Auditor General. Could you give us an indication what has already been done in response to those recommendations by the AG.
I would be very pleased to do that. I think it's important that this committee knows that significant action has been taken. In fact, we estimate we're about halfway there in implementing the recommendations from the auditor. We're on track to have all recommendations fully implemented by the fall of 2013. So recommendation number 1, the auditor recommended that review whether the amount the ministry pays for air ambulance is reasonable for the level of service provided by renegotiating the performance agreement to provide direct access to Ornge's affiliated organizations, evaluating the cost of delivery compared to previous years, establishing additional performance indicators with more frequent and more informative reports on the extent to which performance expectations are being met. So I'm very happy to report on progress on that recommendation. We do have a new performance agreement. You've heard about that. It requires approval for changes to the corporate structure and requires compliance with the broader Public Sector Accountability Act and the Public Sector Salary Disclosure Act. So we have fixed that problem. We will now have full reporting of compensation for those at Ornge. The second, an interjurisdictional scan examining provision of air ambulance services across Ontario is currently underway, and it's on track to be completed by the end of this year. Under the new PA, Ornge is required to report to the Ministry on a number of key performance indicators according to a preset timeline. This is also on track to be completed by the end of this calendar year. Recommendation number 2. The auditor recommended that we conduct a formal program evaluation of critical care land ambulance that would assess total demand, assess capacity at the municipal land ambulances instead of having Ornge do it, and comparing the cost of different service options. I can tell you that that is currently underway. It is including an assessment of need for interfacility patient transfers. The review is to be completed in this fiscal year with implementation of the review's findings in 2013-14. Recommendation number 3, changes to ensure patient needs are met in the most cost-efficient manner. So I can tell you progress on that recommendation. Ornge is now better tracking how often hospital staff must accompany a patient because appropriately trained paramedics are not available. We are also beginning to review the reasons for flight cancellations after takeoff. We are also, the Ministry and Ornge are reviewing the feasibility of linking the land and air ambulance dispatch systems. And Ornge is also undertaking the substantive work of ensuring the most appropriate aircraft are routed to pick up and deliver patients requiring transport. Recommendation number 4, to enable air ambulance response times to be assessed against performance standards and reasonableness, including the track of key times in the call handling process, while expanding the provisions in the performance agreement requirements to include indicators on response times for the key stages of a patient transport, from the time a call is received to the time when Ornge is on site to the time the patient reaches his or her destination. So I'm very pleased to report that the amended performance agreement requires Ornge to report on key reaction and response time indicators, that Ornge is undertaking system upgrades to meet this enhanced reporting requirement, that Ornge is undertaking a review and developing a plan to ensure all times in the call handling process are properly recorded. Recommendation number 5, the final recommendation, that the Ministry should conduct unannounced service reviews of Ornge, that Ornge should identify systemic issues from improved complaint tracking, and Ornge should review its quality assessment evaluation measures to ensure they reflect key elements of good patient care. Again, significant progress. Ornge has established an Operations Quality Committee to evaluate and address quality assessment evaluation measures, and they're developing a quality improvement plan like our hospitals do. The Ministry continues to conduct regular unannounced service reviews. Ornge is using an improved complaints tracking system to identify any systemic issues. The Ministry investigation unit has reviewed what complaints, incidents, and resulting investigations at Ornge should be forwarded to the ministry, and has worked with Ornge, including providing training to designated staff to ensure the reporting requirements on incidents is clear. So you can see from this that we took the Auditor General's report very, very seriously. We are implementing every single one of the recommendations. I want to supplement that with the findings of this committee. You have had a very thorough focus on this issue of Ornge. You have heard from, I think, 54 witnesses, hours and hours of testimony. You will have very good advice for us, and I'm very much looking forward to receiving that advice so we can integrate that into the strengthening of Ornge. As I say, Ontario patients are counting on us to do what's right. None of us ever want to be a patient, but I tell you, if ever someone we love needs an air ambulance, we have a collective responsibility to ensure that it's as good as it can be. So that work is underway, and I look forward to the results of this committee.
We're out of time there. We have 5 minutes left for Mr. Klees. Mr. Klees.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The point number 13, the final point on that document, Minister, that I handed you that you've never seen, that 6 of your bureaucrats, including your Assistant Deputy Minister, Ms. Lee, saw and failed to bring to your attention. The last point is this. If Ornge is unsuccessful, and the Ministry may have increased expenditures with limited value having been extracted and may need to pay twice for the same assets by being morally, if not legally, obligated to assume liabilities. These are both significant risks, and Ornge should obtain advice from legal services on this. Apparently, you neither saw this, it wasn't brought to your attention, and neither did you get the legal advice, and that's why we're in the mess that we're in today. My advice to you, those 6 bureaucrats who failed to bring such sensitive information and high-risk information to your attention should be given their walking papers. I'd also suggest to you that you should be very careful when you talk about how cooperative you and your ministry has been. I have here a list, a stack of Freedom of Information requests that were submitted to your ministry in February of this year. We have yet to hear from them. What we did get has most of the information redacted. I would ask you, and I'll leave this with you, if you would at least undertake to ensure that we get all of this information, and given the fact that we're running out of time, we did have 3 hours scheduled for Chris Mazza, who has refused to appear. Given the fact that we have so much information and have yet to get to the bottom of your contradictions, I'm asking you now, will you agree to come and testify in that period of time that we had set aside for Mr. Mazza so that we can continue to pursue this with you? And finally, I will say this to you, Minister. You asked for our advice. For someone who it took 2 years and 6 months to get any information about a situation that was brewing under your watch, and not to have sufficient initiative to ensure that you get the information that you need, not to pick up the phone and call a man who was responsible for overseeing $150 million of taxpayers' dollars, and not making it your business, notwithstanding what a performance agreement said or didn't say, and do what you did in December, as you testified, that you picked up the phone, that you took the initiative, regardless of what was in the performance agreement. You said, I want that information. You failed miserably in exercising your oversight responsibility. You said you believed the Auditor General, and we did too, and you know what he said. The Auditor General made it very clear. You and your ministry failed in your oversight responsibilities of Ornge. That is in his report. Those are his words, not mine. Based on that, and based on the fact that you continue to deny any responsibility, continue to lay off all kinds of excuses on people within your ministry, Mazza, the Board of Directors, I'm suggesting to you the honorable thing for you to do is to admit your failure and offer to step aside as Minister of Health.
Was there a question there? I'm not sure there was, but what I would like to say, if you want to do the honorable thing, Mr. Klees, you will stop running down the frontline staff at Ornge. You have repeatedly made allegations that, upon further reflection, turn out to be erroneous, and that is having a negative impact on the frontline staff.
Will you agree to come back in Mr. Mazza's place to testify?
I said earlier that I will happily come back.
And then we will schedule you in Dr. Mazza's place. Is that an agreement?
I don't know when Dr. Mazza was scheduled.
Dr. Mazza was scheduled to be here on
Thursday. What I say, there's a process.
On Wednesday. Tomorrow.
There's a process by which we schedule these things.
We'll
I told you
accommodate.
I will come back. I can't right now commit to the specific time, but of course I will. I said that before. I stand by that. I'd be more than happy to come back.
I would think this would be a priority.
What I do,
And on that note, we are out of time, and I would thank the Minister for coming before the committee this morning. We are recessed until this afternoon at 1 o'clock.